Good morning, everyone. I am New York State Senator Pete Harckham, Chair of Environmental Conservation Committee. With me today is the co-chair of this event, Senator Rachel May. We want to thank you and your team for your efforts in putting this together. This is a public hearing on harmful algal blooms, blue-green algae eutrophication. Unlike many of the public hearings that happen in this room, I just want to reassure everyone this is not a gotcha public hearing. This is about all of us collaborating, sharing information with each other, and then if there are things that Senator May and I can do legislatively as we go into next year to work with all of you. That's what the point of this is. You know, we know harmful algal blooms impact the entire state, from Long Island to the Hudson Valley to Buffalo, the Adirondacks to the Canadian border. It's a problem for drinking water, it's a problem for biodiversity, it's a problem for recreation. So today we have, thanks to all of you, we've got state agencies here, we have local governments here, we have academics here, we have lake representatives here, we have soil conservation representatives here. So we're going to have a full discussion. So let me turn it over to Senator May for her opening remarks, and then I will just give everyone the ground rules and then introduce first panel. Senator May.
Thank you, Senator. Can everyone hear me if I keep my mask on? Is that okay? All right, good. Yeah, I'm really grateful to you for calling this hearing. I'm here both as the chair of the Commission on Rural Resources and as the senator from the 48th District, where I have 4 of the Finger Lakes in my district, and Owasco Lake in particular, which has been probably hardest hit of all of the state's lakes with harmful algal blooms in recent years. So I'm so grateful to everyone who is here to share their wisdom and help us try to figure out what we do moving forward, because people are feeling very anxious and frustrated. When I was going door to door in this district in both of the last 2 elections, everyone said their top issue was water. As soon as I got out of the city of Syracuse, it was water, 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 water. And so this is on behalf of my constituents and so many people across the state. The more we can figure out how to improve, make sure that their drinking water isn't threatened, that their quality of life isn't radically altered by this real problem that is popping up in so many places where it didn't used to happen. So thank you all. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you, Senator May. Our first panel are state agencies. From the Department of Environmental Conservation, we have Alexander J. Smith, PhD, Assistant Director, Division of Water. From the Department of Agriculture and Markets, we have Commissioner Richard Ball. From New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, we have Ron Roush, Deputy Commissioner for Environmental Stewardship, and Gabriela Sabata-Mora, Division Director for Environmental Stewardship and Planning. Just the ground rules for this panel and all panels, all testifiers will have 5 minutes to testify. So if your testimony, your written testimony is longer than 5 minutes, you know, we'll have that. My suggestion always at every public hearing is just summarize your testimony conversationally as opposed to trying read through it, because a lot of times folks don't get through it, it's too dense. And then we will each have, you know, 5 minutes plus or minus for questioning. Fortunately, there are only 2 of us here now. We have other members who will be coming, but as long as it's a small hearing, we can be a little more informal with the rules. So with that, why don't we get started? In no particular order, whoever would like to start. Thank you so much. And when you speak, just for the camera and the folks who are watching at home in the recording, please state your name and your agency.
Sure. My name is Ron Roush. I'm Deputy Commissioner for Environmental Stewardship with the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation. On behalf of Commissioner Pro Tempore Simons, thank you for inviting us to speak here today. We appreciate the committee's interest in and commitment to this important topic. Governor Hochul's investment in outdoor recreation in general and swimming specifically through the New York State Swims program, as well as development of new swimming areas at Sojourner Truth State Park and Lake Sebago at Harriman State Park, underlines New York's commitment to safe and accessible swimming opportunities. New York State Parks hosted a record 88 million visitors last year. They came to enjoy the beauty of our parks and the recreational opportunities afforded, including over 1,000 ponds, lakes, and marine waters, over 300 miles of shoreline along the tidal waters and the Great Lakes, and 60 guarded swimming beaches. Across New York State, harmful algal blooms, or HABs, can and at times do negatively impact recreational investments at New York State Park facilities, places that are important to many New York residents. Harmful algal blooms is an umbrella term for cyanobacteria or blue-green algae that occurs in water bodies and can have toxic effects on humans, pets, and wildlife. Harmful algal blooms can produce toxins, and these toxins have been detected within New York State Park's water bodies. Exposure to both HAB bloom material and HAB toxins can cause short and long-term impacts, ranging from skin irritation and rashes to headaches and vomiting, to longer-term impacts to the lungs, nervous system, and other organs. Documented incidences of HABs at New York State Parks are on the rise. 40% of state park facilities have experienced a HAB. 2009 saw the first documented HAB at a state park swimming beach. Since then, monitoring and detections have increased. Last year, 75 park locations had confirmed HABs, including 12 swimming beach locations. But these numbers only tell part of the story. Many of these areas have had HABs occur multiple times over the course of a year. The occurrences of HABs in 2024 led to 131 operational beach days lost, up from 52 in 2016. These are days that the public had counted on to spend enjoying swimming and time on the water, opportunities many of them don't have at home. HABs can be ephemeral, occurring in a swim area for an hour before dissipating or being blown by the wind to another location, only to return a few hours later, which can make reopening a swim area challenging. Although HABs have typically presented in this way at state park water bodies, over the past few years, we have started to see occurrences of lake-wide HABs that last for weeks or even months. Lake Welch at Harriman State Park, our largest freshwater beach, is a prime example, resulting in the loss of an entire bathing season in 2022 with almost $1 million lost in revenue, which is why we have since committed over $5 million at Lake Welch to assess and design an upgraded wastewater treatment plant and stormwater treatment systems. It should also be noted that climate change, along with other landscape pressures, act as catalysts for increasing water quality challenges. When HABs occur, it unfortunately leads to both diminished recreational opportunities as well as causing interruptions in essential public services. For instance, lifeguards need to be moved to other facilities to handle increased crowds as people are redirected to alternative swimming areas, which can lead to lost income from canceled visits and camping reservations. This trend looks to be continuing due to a variety of factors, including a changing climate. And as to how Parks is addressing HABs, I turn it over to my colleague. Thank you.
Good morning. 1 minute, okay. Good morning. I'm Gabriella Spadamora, the Division Director for Environmental Stewardship and Planning at the Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation. Parks is the longest-running conservation and recreational-focused resource in the state, predating comparable federal efforts, and we help define communities. New Yorkers take pride in their parks, and they patronize them repeatedly. How is OPRHP addressing HABs? We work closely with fellow state agencies, including DEC and DOH, and our protocols are in accordance with their standards and guidance documents. When a bloom is reported in parks outside of a swimming area, we place signage that advises patrons to avoid recreating in that area. When a HAB occurs at a bathing beach, we close the beach for swimming until the swim area is visually clear of the HAB for a day, then collect a water sample for testing to ensure toxins are not present and are below the required threshold by DOH. Dealing with HABs is complex, and there is no easy fixes. High levels of nutrients and other hot weather are usually the main cause. However, other factors can play a role. Even when excess nutrients are part of the problem, managing for these sources is challenging. OPRHP works with other state agencies, including DEC, DOH, and EFC, as well as federal partners like USGS, EPA, and NOAA. We rely on the existing tools developed by these partners and frequently collaborate to analyze HABs and utilize a suite of tools to investigate and manage blooms. Some of the actions that Parks has taken, we have partnered with USGS to manage HABs at Monroe, including doing sediment core testing. We have also partnered with USGS in 2022 to do a structured decision-making framework for managing cyanobacteria HABs in New York State parks, which resulted in a scientific study. And we are evaluating a multi-year, multi-partner HAB management technology, which currently is underway. The effects are currently inconclusive, but ongoing. In conclusion, we really appreciate the collaborative efforts with these co-agencies, and we are grateful for this committee and the interest and commitment to this topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And before we get to our next panelist, I just want to say we have been joined by the Environmental Conservation Committee Ranking Member, Senator Dan Steck. Welcome.
Good morning. Thanks, Chairman. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, Chair Harcum, Senator May, Senator Steck. Thank you for having us. As stated, my name is Alexander Smith. I'm Assistant Division Director for the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation's Division of Water. It's a pleasure to be invited to be here today to review the important and nation-leading efforts that our agency has been engaged in to address harmful algal blooms, or HABs. I appreciate the opportunity, so again, thank you. I would also like to thank all of you for your work on this committee and your willingness and interest in tackling some of the most pressing environmental quality issues of our day. Your support of our agency and our work is very much appreciated. We have provided a detailed testimony outlining our comprehensive approach to addressing HABs, but I'd like to briefly touch on a few main topics which highlight our efforts within the DEC and with our other state agencies. As you know, HABs are of growing concern here in New York State and beyond, primarily caused by cyanobacteria or blue-green algae. HABs are fueled by excess nutrients, mainly phosphorus and nitrogen, entering our water bodies through non-point source runoff and wastewater discharges. Climate change further exacerbates the issue, with warmer temperatures and heavier rainfall increasing the frequency and severity of HABs. Since 2012, we have built an incredible monitoring program, unlike any other in the country, that has documented HABs in over 650 water bodies in New York State, with 200 water bodies affected on average each year. Through our monitoring and public reporting efforts, DEC has documented an apparent rise in confirmed HABs since the agency started recording their occurrence. However, most of this is attributed to our enhanced public outreach and implementation of an online reporting system we affectionately call NIHABs. In recent years, reporting and new HAB observations have leveled out. These blooms pose serious threats, though, not only to public health and drinking water supplies, but also to recreation, local economies, and aquatic ecosystems. As with many environmental issues we face, the most effective and resource-efficient method to reduce the frequency of HABs focuses on an integrated approach with prevention at the center. For HABs, this means reducing nutrient pollution. To that end, DEC leads a comprehensive and integrated multi-agency effort to address HABs, which includes implementing source controls through watershed planning, management, and improvement activities to control nutrients and keep them on the land instead of in our waters. Mitigating HABs where we can through in-water body mitigation and treatment projects where appropriate and possible to reduce their frequency, extent, and severity. Research and innovation to continue to grow our understanding of the dynamics of HAB formation and potential treatment so that everyone can make more informed management decisions. The state supports this strategy through record investments, thanks to the partnership with the legislature that are providing significant annual resources to improve water quality. Since 2018, New York State has invested more than $500 million in projects aimed at reducing nutrient pollution to help reduce HABs, primarily through DEC's Water Quality Improvement Project grant program, alongside more than $14 million for HAB research and development. We're excited to highlight that as of Monday of this week, at least another $75 million in Water Quality Improvement Project funding is available through the state's consolidated funding application. Recent initiatives focus on reducing the frequency and occurrence of HABs, include targeted phosphorus reduction plans, for example, things like total maximum daily loads, 9-element watershed plans, and HAB action plans, pilot projects that test innovative bloom control methods through collaboration with many different partners, and capacity building efforts in certain regions such as the Eastern Finger Lakes. New York's approach balances long-term watershed management with in-lake mitigation strategies and cutting-edge research. Public involvement is also crucial, and through nation-leading public education and awareness campaigns like Know It, Avoid It, Report It, the state is empowering the public to be part of the solution. In summary, HABs present complex challenges, but New York remains at the forefront with an unprecedented, proactive, and science-based strategy to protect our water resources, public health, and local economies. Again, thank you for the opportunity today, and I'm happy to try to answer whatever questions you may have.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, Chair Harcum and members of the Committee on Environmental Conservation, elected officials. Appreciate the opportunity to submit testimony on New York State's efforts to combat harmful algal blooms in our natural environment. On behalf of the department, I can say with confidence that protecting New York's water supply is a top priority for our agency. We work every day alongside our colleagues at DEC, DOH, and Parks, and our local partners at county soil and water conservation districts to accelerate watershed protection and restoration measures. These initiatives improve water quality, mitigate HABs, and build resilience to support New York's ag industry. For example, department programs like Ag Non-Point Source Abatement and Control, Climate Resilient Farming, and Ag Environmental Management, or AEM, prioritize projects that reduce nutrient runoff and soil erosion, which can contribute to HABs. Investments through these programs also reduces greenhouse gas emissions. Just over the last 5 years, New York has dedicated nearly $125 million through these programs to on-farm projects that target these goals. Conserving our natural resources, fighting climate change, and protecting soil and water quality, all necessary to reducing the conditions that can cause HABs. Additionally, through various funding streams allocated in the budget, the department supports the soil and water conservation districts, which work with our farms to implement better nutrient and sediment control practices. The department also supports the state's municipalities to increase stormwater absorption, improve water retention. These are accomplished through best management practices such as nutrient management through manure storage, vegetative buffers along streams, conservation cover crops, water management, and more. Since 2020, more than 6,500 farms across New York State, working with our soil and water conservation districts, have received grants through the department's environmental programs. Combined, the funded projects have reduced over 660,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide emissions, the equivalent to removing more than 154,000 cars off the road for 1 year. They have also made a measurable impact towards keeping HABs out of the state's waterways. Specific to the Finger Lakes watershed area, $66 million has been awarded over the last 5 years to implement best management practices on 370 farms within that region. The projects awarded in the Finger Lakes alone have reduced 32,800 pounds of total phosphorus, 746 pounds of total nitrogen, and 43 million pounds of sediment per year. This work has reduced New York State's ag emissions by nearly 43,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent each year. We're proud of this positive impact, even as we know that more must be done to address HABs in the watersheds. As such, we are developing comprehensive action plans that will not only build on the current work to prevent water pollution, improve nutrient management, and reduce erosion, but will also guide our future goals for a sustainable environment and cleaner water bodies. Most recently, New York State announced $1.2 million in funding for the Eastern Finger Lakes Coalition. This coalition covers 11 conservation districts and more than 30% of the Lake Ontario drainage basin, including 7 of the New York's Finger Lakes. The region recently reported a greater frequency of HABs. This investment in the coalition helps us to build professional capacity, coordinate the efforts, and accelerate agriculture and resiliency-related topics, including dedicated funding to address HABs. It also includes support for farmers to invest in more cover crops, improve culverts to reduce runoff, and enhance soil health and reduce water quality impairments within the region. An additional $42 million, supported by the Bond Act and other capital resources, is being directed to make further water quality improvements and combat HABs in the region also. This will help the state build on its current programs, support the coalition with innovative agricultural and resilient projects both on and off farms. Projects like these have been identified in federal and state-approved clean water plans and other pollution prevention plans. These are intended to further drive down nutrient and sediment runoff in the eastern Finger Lakes watersheds. While these are significant measures aimed at improving our water quality and reducing instances of HABs, there's no question that more needs to be done to reduce the frequency and the duration in our water bodies. I assure you that on the state level, we're taking the action alongside our local partners, and we'll continue to do all we can to preserve this precious resource today and for future generations as well. Thank you.
Man, that was good, exactly 5 minutes. All right, our first questioner, and as I said at the beginning, each of us will have plus or minus 5 minutes to ask questions. So our first questioner will be Senator Rachel May.
Yeah, thank you all for your testimony, and
Time's up.
that was quick. Let me start with you, Dr. Smith, NDEC. I was wondering if you feel like you have the tools to do real-time monitoring, and is forecasting an option for HABs? Is that something that you are able to do, or that we could potentially provide resources to help you do?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's one that's near and dear to my heart because, I cut my teeth on water quality sondes and those sorts of things and real-time monitoring. So we have invested a lot of time and energy, along with a lot of our partners at USGS and elsewhere, on investigating whether or not real-time monitoring, the use of real-time water quality sondes in lakes and rivers is something that would be beneficial when it comes to monitoring for HABs and also for forecasting. And I do believe that it shows promise. It's an expensive endeavor, and we have a lot of data and information that we're currently reviewing as part of an advanced HABs monitoring program that we worked on in the Finger Lakes. And that information and data is currently being worked through and analyzed to see what kind of benefit it can really provide for our ability to provide not just the data, but also that forecasting capability.
Okay, great. I'd love to be updated on that as it comes along. And then, again, thinking about tools you've got, tools you need, do you believe that the regulatory tools that are in place, like fertilizer bans or stormwater permits or CAFO regulations, are those sufficient to do the work you're trying to do to control HABs, or are there other tools that you need?
Yeah, I believe that what we have is sufficient for us to do the work that we need to do to control HABs, and I believe that the work that we're doing is showing that that's the direction we're heading in. There are things that could be done that would be supportive. For example, continuing to support in the way that the legislature has all of the resources that we currently have been provided to be able to do things like what we've released recently in terms of our work with agriculture markets on the Eastern Finger Lakes region, the grants that we're providing, so forth. Those are really important resources, so continuing to provide that is important, as well as supporting some of our centers of excellence. So we have very unique opportunities through our centers of excellence to be able to provide new and innovative approaches to mitigating HABs, among other things. Things from investigating the efficacy of enhanced septic systems to control nutrients in septic systems, as well as in water body mitigation methods, like some of the things that we've tested with them previously.
Right.
So supporting those folks is also very important.
Okay, great. I know also the Army Corps of Engineers was working on a number of things. I don't know if they'll be able to do that moving forward.
Yeah.
Commissioner Ball, let me ask you, I'm sure you're very well aware that the state Supreme Court ruled last week about the Owasco Lake issue, and as I read that ruling, the judge was very skeptical about voluntary programs like AEM being a sufficient way to be engaging with agriculture in terms of controlling runoff and reducing agriculture's impact on the lake. So I'm wondering, are you thinking in terms of how that might change so that, what are you thinking as a result of that ruling?
Well, I think that our practices, which have evolved over the years, but we've got decades of work with Ag Nonpoint, and we've added climate resilient farming practices now. The Eastern Finger Lakes Coalition program. I feel very confident that what we've done, I outlined some of the improvements we've seen across New York State. They're dramatic. I think the AIM voluntary programs, those incentives work. We need to do more of that, not less of that. So I'm very comfortable with the programs that we have in place and the investment we have from the legislature and the governor to do more of that. I think we're, the coalition work, I think, is really the way to go.
Can I ask one quick question of Parks? And then, just a very quick question. You mentioned signage. I was wondering, is that multilingual signage?
Yes.
Okay, like how many languages?
It depends on the park. We ask them what they need for their constituency, so definitely Spanish, but sometimes Mandarin. It really depends which location. And if there's a need and we don't have that, we can create that signage. We try to do pictographs more so than words to be universal.
We have a lot of refugees who like fish for food in many of our lakes, and yeah, so Vietnamese. There are a number of languages that we need.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Just let us know.
All right, thank you. Our next questioner is Senator Dan Steck.
Thanks, Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. I'll start with the DEC if I could, and I'm glad that Senator May opened with a question about resources available. For my colleagues' benefit, as much as DEC's, every year budget time, I ask the Commissioner, do you have enough resources to do everything that we task you to do? Because from my perspective, we're overtasking DEC, and my concern is that we ask you to do so much that none of it or a lot of it isn't getting done as well as it could be. So I'm concerned about, the ratio or, how much resources we made available. But my question in that vein would be, every lake situation is different. And I don't even mean that physically, as to what how the water gets in it, the flow of the water there, whether it's a kettle lake or, the geology of the lakes, but then, the ownership of the lakes, the responsibility. I represent Lake George. Lake George is very unique because it's highly regulated, it has its own park commission. And then you've got a lot of lakes that are privately owned, municipally owned. So, my concerns or my questions, I guess, would be, how are we approaching tracking, and again, you've got a prevention versus a response. You're trying to prevent HABs, but then when a HAB occurs, there's a response. But, how are we going at these depending on the lake as far as whose responsibility is it? If it's a state facility and a state-owned, then it's easy to swoop in there and do whatever you got to do. But if you're working with a private owner, if you're working with municipalities, what is the mix between an education effort versus a regulatory effort versus an enforcement effort? And again, how are we divvying up the resources? How do you go at, all right, I mean, it's very easy to step into Lake George, and it's very easy to justify spending a lot of money on Lake George. There's a lot going there because we control a lot of pieces on the board, but, is jumping into a Lake George issue the most, with everything we got, the best use of the resources? How do you decide where we're going to put these efforts? Small lakes, big lakes, private lakes, tourist lakes, high-vis lakes versus wealthier lakes versus poorer lakes. How are we administering those limited resources?
It's definitely a complex issue. I'll definitely give you that. But I think that we do a pretty good job well, more than a pretty good job. I think we do a great job of handling it, especially with the resources that we have, which is pretty fantastic, more than probably many other states in the U.S. And we try to use them very wisely, those resources, and a lot of it comes down to partnership and collaboration, right? So, and it depends on what we see as the potential root cause of harmful algal blooms in a specific water body, right? So And then also, it comes down to the ownership piece. So if there are things that we can do as an agency when it's related to, say, speedies permitted discharges that might be contributing nutrients, we would address those sources. If it comes to non-point source issues along the landscape, we work with the whole community, right? And a lot of different partners across the agencies as well to try and address those non-point source issues. And then also trying to empower lake associations to be able to, and private communities to be able to address the issues on their lakes by providing funding to and resources to municipalities that they can come into and apply for. And we encourage a collaboration between, say, lake associations and municipalities, especially in those areas where maybe it's more privately owned type of setting. And so that you get an entire community buy-in to address the issue. And then when it comes to, say, disadvantaged communities, because I think that was a piece of the question, we are extremely proud of the work that we are doing when it comes to disadvantaged communities and empowering them to be able to address the environmental issues that they're facing, especially HABs. So, for example, one of the things that we've done over the last couple of years is improved our grant opportunities, especially our WQIP and other now with Bond Act, to be able to provide more resources to disadvantaged communities. Just alone in WQIP last year, 87% of our awards of our funding went to disadvantaged communities. And that's because of the way that we've structured the grants to be able to give them, that benefit.
Okay. My concern, obviously, is, a smaller community. I've got 84 towns, and some have the capability of jumping on an issue like this, and some don't. Are they first come, first serve, or are these competitive grants? Because some have, they got studies sitting on the shelf, and when money becomes available, they just pluck that study off the shelf, and they're first in line with a organized ask. And then others, they just don't have the staff resources to even put together a grant application. Sorry, thank you.
No, you can keep going.
Are they first come, first serve, or are they competitive? The smaller municipalities that I represent will have a hard time, and we see this in a lot of other grant areas. This isn't unique to, water quality. These are water and wastewater grants and things like that. Yeah,
understood. And it's something that we definitely need to make sure that we address, and I believe that we are. So through those grants that are competitive, we advocate for folks to utilize our community assistance teams, something that we do with Environmental Facilities Corporation and our other agencies and our own grant staff to try and provide opportunities for communication with applicants to come in for those grants.
All right, thank you. Thanks, John.
Thank you. All right, thank you. First, start with a quick question for Parks. Thanks for your testimony. We talk about preventing HABs, and also once we have their presence, and you spoke about a couple of your lakes being closed, Lake Welch being one of them. Is that the one I remember reading you used peroxide to remediate, or one of your parks? Which one was that, and how did it work?
So we considered using peroxide for Lake Welch. We did not use that. We used a different chemical. We used, I believe it was C-Clear,
Okay.
A different chemical constituent. At the time, the peroxide seemed too expensive to use for that treatment, although ideally that one is more benign than the other. So ultimately, I think down the road, we'd still want to pursue something like that based on funding.
And how did that work?
It works.
Was it effective?
Was very effective, yes. I will say it was effective being used with a suite of other interventions that we conducted at Lake Welch, and we tried to minimize the treatment, the dosage, so treating only half a lake with half a dose to minimize any compounding effects.
Okay,
But
great.
it was successful, yes.
All right, thank you. And then we'll turn to DEC on the same theme of treating HABs. One of the things that other states use is alum, which is not allowed in New York, and there's been a study going on, it seems forever. Where is that study? Why are we so hesitant to use alum in New York? Not as a cure-all, but on a case-by-case basis.
Yes, and I understand that it could seem that way, like it's been going on forever. But we do want to be able to use every tool that's in the toolbox and even those tools that are still at the hardware store, in a sense, right? And alum is one of those tools that we want to be able to use as a nutrient inactivant to control internal loading of phosphorus. But we want to be able to take a measured and methodical approach to evaluating whether or not and how effective it actually is, because we need to get things right, like dosing and timing precisely right, so that we are not causing more collateral damage. We don't want to trade one environmental issue for another, right? And so that's why over the last several years we've been engaged with the resources that we've received, that we've talked about earlier, to be able to do some pilot studies within New York to look at the efficacy of alum as a nutrient inactivant to control internal loading of phosphorus, which, indirectly then we would expect, as we've talked about, could control HABs. So we've been moving through that set of studies. We've piloted it on 3 different lakes. I think you'll hear about probably some of that later today in other testimony. And the information that we are gathering is very promising. I think that we are able to, we're starting to understand how we would permit its use. But before we get to actually rolling that out officially, we need to be able to lock down a few parameters with our other divisions within DEC, like, say, Fish and Wildlife, to make sure that fisheries and aquatic life and habitats are not unnecessarily harmed in our application.
All right, thanks. Let me switch directions for a little bit. You spoke about TMDLs. Most of the East of Hudson watershed is in my district. All of those communities have enhanced MS4s to address phosphorus total maximum daily loads. As you know, they formed the East of Hudson Watershed Corporation for sort of a balloon compliance on phosphorus reduction. I should say, for the record, we did invite New York City to be here. I'm greatly disappointed that they opted not to be here because these municipalities are spending a lot of money to protect those water resources. But back to the question at hand. Do we have data? Are we showing the TMDLs, have they been effective? Are we lowering the phosphorus loading in those reservoirs because of the efforts of those communities to address a non-point source runoff?
So I appreciate the detail that question really requires in terms of response, and I don't have the specific data on the East of Hudson. I apologize for that.
No, that's okay.
But,
we can get back to me.
Yeah, but what I would suggest is that we set up some time to talk specifically about the East of Hudson TMDL and the work that we are doing in that area, especially with New York City. But I would say, more broadly, when it comes to any what we like to call pollution budget, right? Especially when it's focused on phosphorus. Yes, the impact is positive.
We can keep going.
We'll keep
That's
going. So the impact is positive, and we do see reductions in phosphorus through the various nutrient controls that we're able to apply. The TMDL is really focused on the point source discharges, those that we can control from, say, the facilities that we have permits for. But then we look at other watershed planning tools to be able to access best management practices and really that sort of community-driven collaboration to address some of the non-point source, because the non-point source is a little bit harder for us to tackle at times.
All right, thank you. We've been joined by Senator Anthony Palumbo. Welcome, sir.
Good morning, Chairman.
I'm going to ask one more question, then we'll turn it over to you for questions. Commissioner Ball, thank you for your testimony as always. Following up on what Senator May said, obviously there's kind of a natural tension between agriculture and our desire to protect farms and their right to farm, and yet we do know that agricultural nutrient runoff is one of the causes of HABs, not the only cause. In my district, it's primarily failing septics. It's different causes in different places, but it is a challenge, and we've got this tension between ag and the environment. And a lot of farmers are doing the right thing. They're doing the departments, but clearly, you know, we still have these incidents, as in Senator May's district. I was up there with her 2 summers ago. So are there other tools that we in the legislature, and I mean this in a proactive way, not a negative way, are there other tools that we, either in the next budget or legislatively, can give you and farmers so they can better assist in the effort to prevent HABs?
Well, thank you, Senator, and I appreciate the tone of your question very much. This is so much bigger than agriculture, and it totally needs a bigger view. And I thank you for appreciating that. You know, with climate change, hotter temperatures during the season, differential rainfall patterns that we're having, all of that, invasive species. As my colleague from DEC noted, it's a complex problem. I think your continued support of climate resilient farming, Ag Non-Point, I mean, these programs have been oversubscribed for decades. And now we have some pretty good funding. We got great funding. The Eastern Finger Lakes Coalition, for example, is a great example. Increasing the EPF and the funding there. I think, you know, continuing to support that funding program, that's what we need to do. I also have to just single out the soil and water conservation districts. There's a challenge in getting the right information to the right people. Every county's got a soil and water conservation district. These guys have the access to the funding, the grant streams, they have the technical expertise, and they're accessible to the farmers in every one of those counties. They're really the boots on the ground. We've been able to increase their funding. So again, when we look at budgets, you know, they're the guys that actually do the work on the farm to help mitigate too much rain, not enough rain, et cetera. So I think that's what we can focus on in a big way.
All right, thank you. Senator Palumbo.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning. Sorry I was a little late, had other committees. Good to see you both. And that was along the lines of my questioning. My district is the first Senate district, so I go from Stony Brook University all the way out to Montauk Point. And in fact, I can brag a little bit. Newsday had a rating of beaches, the 10 best beaches in the state of New York this morning, and I have 5 in my district. That you know the concerns about water quality and algal blooms in saltwater. And I don't know if that was addressed as well, and that we've got some brackish lakes and so forth that have really been you know, exposed greatly to that concern. And I know, I guess, Commissioner Ball, along those lines, as far as the farming industry and a combination of that balance between the ag community, because we have, and I'm sorry if this was already asked, and you just didn't address it to an extent in the last question. But those are the concerns that I see, that I think we're number 3 in production, Suffolk County, agriculturally, statewide. We used to be 1, I guess, before the yogurt and Chobani and everyone, the dairy industry blossomed upstate. But people don't realize that. They come out to my district and they're shocked at what it looks like. They think that it's more of a suburban community when we have huge open space. We have preservation funds to reduce you know, expansion and you know, the infrastructure that would be needed. So I guess primarily our concerns of nitrogen in the water were mostly from septic, because we can't sewer the entire east end of Long Island. But I don't know if you have any comments regarding the interaction with the farming industry, and you know, of course, we'd love to hear from the DEC as well if they have any comments just on how we can do better to strike that balance, because of course over-fertilization does play a role as well in that, that essentially, you know, we're putting Miracle-Gro in our estuaries, and that's what's making these things flourish, right, to an extent. So I don't know if you have any further comments on that. Thank you.
Well, I would just say that long been aware of the importance of Suffolk County to New York's agricultural base, because as a vegetable grower, I compete with Suffolk County every day. You've got some of the best growers in the state down there. But you also have a sensitive watershed area. You know, you are an island, and you do have very good soils and some leaching that can happen there. But I think it's a testimony to our soil and water conservation district partners along the way. Farmers aren't interested in over-fertilizing anything because it's not inexpensive to do that. And keeping the nutrients, keeping the sediment on the farm is the goal. You've got some of the best growers in the state, and we look forward to working with them, continuing that relationship.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Chairman. Oh, yes, please.
Yeah, I guess
Mrs.
I would just like to take a second to also just reiterate that, you know, our goal is like I said in my opening remarks, prevention at its source, right? We want to try to keep nutrients and sediment on the landscape and not in the water as best we can, because that'll really help us in terms of reducing the frequency and severity of HABs, including those in your district. And I think our collaboration with Ag and Markets speaks volumes for our ability to, to partner to create solutions. And I think we've got a large number of projects that are going in your district as well. Suffolk County is a great example. You mentioned septics, and I just wanted to take a second to highlight the septic replacement program. And one of the things that I think we have to be focused on is enhanced septic systems, right? Not the traditional, large leach field septic system. We're talking about newer systems that have a much better benefit at reducing nitrogen and phosphorus. And I think the activities in your district are a great example of how that can be brought out.
Thank you, and I agree. And that collaboration between the agencies and between the industries, I think, is what makes it a model for the country. When you say something like that, many towns have implemented innovative, advanced septic is required for 50% or greater renovations, or for total rebuilds and new homes, and some grant programs as well to help subsidize that. So I think that's terrific, and it's great because not many of our audience probably knows that there are actually farmers out in SD1. It's not just movie stars. So, but great. Good to see you all. Thank you.
All right, want to thank all of you for your testimony today. Want to thank your teams because I know a lot goes into this. Want to thank the governor's office for coordinating this. So thank you, and look forward to more collaboration and discussion. And let's follow up on the other issue.
Thank you very much.
you.
Thanks. All right, our next panel, local government, is New York Association of Conservation Districts, the City of Auburn, and the Finger Lakes Lake Ontario Watershed Protection Alliance. And while they are coming down, I want to thank Senate Central staff for their work, Senate Media. We want to thank all of our individual staffs who helped prepare us for today. These things don't happen in a vacuum, and we're very grateful for everyone's support. Thank you, Dayanara. Thank you, Marie. And to all our panelists again, 5 minutes for testimony. And again, I suggest that you paraphrase your testimony. If you have lengthy written testimony, that will be submitted for the public record, but we want to make sure we get the gist of what your testimony is. So first up, why don't we start with the New York Association of Conservation Districts, Blanche L. Hurlbut, Executive Director.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me to speak on behalf of the Soil and Water Districts of New York State regarding the algae blooms and the work that they have been completing to keep New York's lakes and streams free of algae. Firstly, it is important to convey the significant efforts districts have undertaken to implement nutrient and sediment reduction programs and projects. Districts are the front line in the planning, implementation, and monitoring of these projects. They not only protect our natural resources, but they prevent these harmful algae blooms. When the public asks how they can help or what we need, it is usually boils down to permitting, funding, staffing as limiting factors. Permitting is still the biggest challenge districts face. Streamlining that process and not add more regulations would be a key to getting the work done. Secondly, farms are doing a lot on their own to reduce nutrient and sediment inputs with management practices like cover cropping, reduced tillage, etc. We are all working together to address the problem, and thank you to everyone who supports these programs. There are many possible causes of algae blooms, and continuing to support ongoing research to identify these causes is also important. Research has shown blooms in low nutrient lakes like Hemlock and Cadians, which have very little agricultural around them. Third, due to the significant role in the programs and projects to reduce the occurrence of algae blooms, district managers should really have a voice here, since districts are the boots on the ground and have a direct connection to the public. Therefore, anyone with question should reach out to the districts directly. In Ontario, the district has been very involved in the creation of a 9-element watershed plan of hubs action plans to lakes, as well as the implementation of projects for reducing sediment and nutrients from entering waterways. Districts, especially those in the Eastern Finger Lakes Coalition, are the main implementors on most of these action plans. Reducing HABs and improving water quality hits 95% of what they do on a day-to-day basis, so it's hard to sum up it briefly. They do a lot with the lake-friendly living programs, creating outreach, education resources, and lots of presentations to landowners, especially farmers and the lakeshore residents. In Delaware County, the district does not have algae blooms that they deal with directly. They are helping mitigate some algae blooms in our Susquehanna and Chesapeake Bay watershed through various programs to work with our farmers. The ag sector is usually identified as the biggest contributor of nutrients that lead to algae blooms. Many of the New York Soil and Water Conservation Districts still need additional funding to continue to bolster our non-point source best conservation management practices, or BMPs. 19 New York State counties and the Chesapeake Bay Susquehanna River watershed are making improvements to water quality through nutrient and sediment reductions, but there's much more work to be done. And as you know, it takes many actions or projects to make improvements to water quality over a long period of time, and more funding equates to more improvements. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we will go to Christy LaManche. Did I pronounce that correctly? All right, good. Thank you. From the Finger Lakes Lake Ontario Watershed Protection Alliance.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Christy LaManche, and I am the program coordinator for the Finger Lakes Lake Ontario Watershed Protection Alliance, FLOPA. We cover a 25-county area located within New York's Finger Lakes Lake Ontario drainage basin. We have been in existence since the mid-1980s and first started as a way for several counties within central New York to work together to address aquatic invasive species concerns. By 1996, the group had expanded to include 25 counties, was officially named FLOPA, and was included as a line item in the Environmental Protection Fund for the first time. As you heard from previous panelists, HABs pose a significant threat to public drinking water supplies, water sports and activities, and human and wildlife health. The presence of algae and cyanobacteria in our waterways is a natural occurrence throughout the world and in New York State. However, at certain times during the summer months, and now even extending into the early fall, the conditions are favorable to promote blooms, some of which contain toxins that pose a serious risk to humans, domestic pets, and wildlife. Since the frequency and distribution of HABs has increased, FLOPA partners have begun to utilize their annual appropriation to help understand, identify, and mitigate HABs. FLOPA partners are more closely monitoring the water quality parameters associated with HABs, including but not limited to temperature, dissolved oxygen, phosphorus, and nitrogen. This information will help researchers and decision makers begin to understand water chemistry and the conditions that contribute to the occurrence of HABs. Once we have a better understanding of these parameters and the trends in water quality in the days, weeks, and months leading up to peak HABs occurrences, local decision makers can be more prepared to protect the health and safety of the public. This water quality monitoring data will also help FLOPA partners measure the success of projects implemented to reduce nutrient and sediment loading to local lakes and streams throughout the watershed. Some of these projects include a variety of techniques to stabilize farmland, stream banks, and road ditches, septic system inspections, homeowner education, implementation of agricultural best management practices, and replacement of culverts sized appropriately to handle today's more intense storm events. Lastly, FLOPA partners have utilized their annual appropriation to conduct public education and outreach efforts to notify the public about HABs and what to do if they encounter them. But even more importantly, what everyone can do as agricultural producers, business owners, lakefront homeowners, watershed residents, and water recreationalists to reduce nutrient and sediment loading that contributes to bloom formation. FLOPA partners appreciate the support of the New York State Senate and what it has provided to our organization over the past 30 years so that we can preserve and protect New York's freshwater resources. We are committed to working with our state and local partners to reduce the frequency and distribution of HABs throughout New York State. It is important to note that we cannot stop HABs from occurring because there are some factors, as you've heard, that are beyond our control: climate change, air and water temperature, wind or lack thereof, and sunlight. But by working together with a dedicated group of agencies, organizations, and landowners, we have the ability to reduce nitrogen and phosphorus inputs that contribute to bloom formation. Our efforts will not be visible right away, but proof will be in the water quality monitoring data collected by FLOPA, our partners, and lake associations. We cannot control the weather, but collectively we can reduce the nutrients available to aquatic algae and bacteria. In order to adequately address the HAB situation in New York State, FLOPA partners need long-term funding for water quality monitoring, implementation of best management practices to address nutrient loading, and septic system evaluation and replacement programs. We also need more money to go towards research and testing to expand the tools available in our HABs mitigation toolbox and to provide creative solutions to our network of partners. Thank you for this opportunity to share my testimony on behalf of FLOPA today.
Thank you very much. Greatly appreciate it. Now Chuck Mason, City Clerk from the City of Auburn. Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Senator Harkman and Senator May for inviting us here today. First want to start out by saying that I'm here on behalf of Mayor Genentino from the City of Auburn and the members of our City Council. I'm simply delivering the message, written message for Mayor Genentino. It's been submitted, and I will do my best to paraphrase some of this, and then I'm going to read a couple paragraphs as well. But I first want to thank Senator Harkman for being in Auburn a couple of years ago and standing on the foot of Owasco Lake with Senator May to take a firsthand look at the situation that the Owasco Lake watershed finds itself in. The City of Auburn sources its water from Owasco Lake, and we provide 4.5 million gallons of treated drinking water per day. And then the town of Owasco also sources its water from Owasco Lake. And in the City of Auburn, we work very closely with the town of Owasco, with Cayuga County, all different agencies, many different state agencies, and then we're kind of double dipping here today on the public hearing because we have the great opportunity you'll also hear from our Owasco Lake Watershed Management Council Executive Director on a panel a little later this afternoon. So we appreciate this time, and in late September and early October of 2016, elevated levels of the microcystin derived from harmful algal blooms were detected and treated finished drinking water drawn from Owasco Lake and supplied to the public. And this was really the shot across the bow. This was the warning shot for us in Auburn. But we were greeted warmly by the governor at the time, and we really felt as though we had a partner with the state of New York taking immediate action to help us. But the problem that we now face is that it's very evident that this is a long-term problem with us experiencing the algal blooms consecutively over the last decade, and the problem just seems to be getting even worse. I'm going to focus a little bit. There's so much work that has been done over the last decade by all the various agencies within our watershed. But I'm going to focus a little of the attention now on the process of the creation of an update to the Owasco Lake Watershed Rules and Regulations. And the City of Auburn and the Town of Owasco believes that the state's immediate approval of the update to the Owasco Lake Watershed Rules and Regulations is a vital component of state action required to protect Owasco Lake. And unfortunately, back in 2023, after years and years of process and dozens of meetings and the participation of hundreds of volunteers and local agencies and state agencies to develop this updated set of rules and regulations, which was approved in 2020 and sent up for state approval. In 2023, we were basically told by the State Department of Health that all things are off, that the updated rules will not be approved. And as Senator May alluded to recently, unfortunately, we had to take the action to court, and there was a court ruling just a couple of weeks ago, and Mayor Genentino is attaching the entire court ruling. We encourage the entire committee and all legislators in Albany to read that court ruling. We think it's very important. You know, the City of Auburn is downstream of the pollution that threatens Owasco Lake, and we're at the mercy of our state agencies. New York's Climate Act, which became law in 2019, acknowledges that climate change affects different communities in different ways. The act identifies state-designated disadvantaged communities, and 4 of our 7 census tracts within the City of Auburn are designated as these disadvantaged communities. The City of Auburn has worked relentlessly over the past 10 years to safeguard our water source. And watersheds such as Owasco Lake, which span several municipalities and interact with multiple state agencies with sometimes competing interests, it has become increasingly apparent that there is a pivotal role for the state legislature to play to bring these state agencies to the realization that they must not just dictate to, but work with localities on the ground to conduct the work necessary in our watersheds to combat and defeat these harmful algal blooms. And I'll end it there. The full testimony has been submitted to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with that, we'll turn to Senator Steck for the first round of questions.
All right. Thanks, Chairman. Good morning, all, and thanks for being here today. I think you were in the audience when the previous panel was here, and my concerns really, what we can do here is we worry about resources and making sure that the resources are being allocated as efficiently as possible. And so, I mean, I think this is great. FLOPA, I think your testimony, you said that you've got 25 counties, and I'm very familiar with the conservation districts, having come up from local government myself. Before I was in the legislature, I was in local government in Warren County, so I'm very familiar with their work and the others surrounding Saratoga and Washington County, Essex County. The conservation districts do great work, and I know that they're very good bang for the buck. As far as what they're able to leverage with the public monies that they get, and they serve everybody, not just municipal needs, but, there's an avenue there for them to work with, private landowners. And so with that said, I'm curious, in your two perspectives, the flow of the resources that you do get from the state, because you represent 25 counties and you've got all the conservation districts, are they getting to the right places? You heard me talk, like every lake, every body of water is a little different, who controls it, who's got the resources to monitor it and stay on top of things, or, they're like homeowners, right? Some homeowners are all over their property and they know every square foot of what's going on, and others, they don't know until there's a crisis. So what could the state be doing better, either DEC or Ag, to make sure that the flow, I don't think it should be first in, first out. But, I also don't want to reward somebody that just ignores everything until it's a crisis and then all the resources go there either. I mean, I guess you got to do what you got to do at that point. But I'd be very interested in your two feedback as to, how are we making the funding decisions at our level as far as making sure it's getting distributed in a fair way, but most importantly in the smartest way possible.
So from FLOPA's perspective, we do cover a 25-county area. Each one of our member counties is represented by a soil and water conservation district, a county planning department, a county department of health. They are the direct recipients on an annual basis of 1/25 of our FLOPA appropriation. Each county gets an equal appropriation amount, and then 5% of our annual appropriation is withheld for administration of the program. So we run a very lean and efficient and effective program. On an annual basis, our appropriation varies. We've been fortunate over the last few years to see increases. Most recently, our appropriation is $3.5 million, divided by 25 counties, with a small portion staying behind for administration. So that works out to be about $137,000 going out to each one of our counties. That is not a huge amount of money to make a large difference, but through our network of partners, working with the districts, the funds that they leverage and can bring from other sources to the table, along with our county appropriations, county contributions, landowner contributions, we make our program work. We are asking in the future for additional funding. This year, our request for the 25-26 budget was $5 million, but we were gracious to get 3.5 and appreciate that as well. So we try to make it work. We leverage funding. We utilize state grants. FLOPA funds are often used to gap the financing budget, if you will, of a project. So we're brought in to help be the carrot and stick approach to projects to get them done. The difference between a landowner participating in a soil and water conservation district program may mean bringing some extra FLOPA funding as an incentive to do the work, to cut their costs, to cut their contribution. So we work very efficiently, pooling resources, leveraging money, and making what we do get from the EPF on an annual basis work. We also try to seek competitive grants. FLOPA has written a number of grants for our partners, a select few based on the funding opportunity, to bring in federal dollars to the program as well. We're right now working on putting a grant together with EPA for invasive species. We've done stuff with EPA in the past for soil erosion and sediment control projects that have benefited a number of our FLOPA partners and, again, brought more money to the area to help combat water quality related issues.
All right, thanks. Blanche.
For the soil and water districts, every year so far, we have received more funding, which makes it great because that means that they can hire additional staff to do the technical work and get the work done in a quick and easy and fast way. The problem that a lot of the districts come up against is the permitting process and how there's delays with stream work and other projects due to permitting not being done quick enough in a year so that they could get the project done and with the funding that is allowed within that year time span and not have to ask for extensions.
If I could do a quick follow-up, Chairman. The permitting process, bureaucracies being what they are, if you had to put it in, one direction or the other, are your concerns about the timeliness of permitting? Do you think it's a bureaucratic resource issue where we have too many permits and not enough people reviewing, or is your sense that it's an attitude, or attitude probably not the best word, but that the level of difficulty, the questions and the detail, and that they've got the resources to do it. They're just asking. They're going way too far down in the weeds. What's slowing you down? Is it the review itself, or not enough people doing the reviews?
I think it's not enough people quick enough to do the reviews and get the proper permitting in place in a timely fashion.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Chairman.
Senator May?
Yeah, thank you. I guess I have one kind of a big overarching question. We did not hear from Department of Health in the previous panel. I guess because they were concerned about litigation and that they shouldn't be here. But
And just for the record, we did invite the Department of Health. They declined citing the litigation.
yeah, but I guess I was sort of startled that the Department of Health was when I learned that they were the lead agency on watershed management issues. I'm just curious, those of you who are on the ground working on these issues, is this the right hierarchy to have in state agencies? Should it be Department of Health? Do you think it should be DOC, Ag and Markets? Who should be the lead agency?
So I'll take that. There's a lot of ways we can speculate what's the best approach to any of these issues, right? But we've heard today that they are incredibly complex, require a lot of investment of both time and money. What I can tell you, speaking not only to your question, but back to the permitting as well, is just that we have heard today how valuable or invaluable the soil and water conservation districts are, right? They are the local experts that I work with on a daily basis. They are the boots on the ground. They are the ones that have the most experience. They have the local connections, and not only from a permitting, but also that hierarchy of communication from the locals to the state. Sometimes it's very difficult to get anything done, and I feel that at some points, the districts and their technical expertise and abilities and knowledge could lend them to do things quicker than necessarily waiting to go through all of the proper channels with the time it takes and the staff requirements on the state's end to get anything done. So I would almost venture to say at any point in time, we should be acknowledging and appreciating and utilizing the expertise of the districts and that local network of on-the-ground folks, and taking their knowledge and their expertise and their firsthand abilities and giving them a little bit more leeway, if you will, to be able to do things within the rules and requirements, but use that expertise and knowledge to make things get done a little bit quicker.
Okay, thank you. And Chuck, I wanted to ask you a question about when you have a city that depends on the water for your drinking water, what mechanisms and tools do you have to influence what goes on upstream from Auburn in terms of helping you do your job?
That's correct. Thank you, Senator, for the question. The tool that we've invested in heavily over the last decade is the creation of the Owasco Lake Watershed Management Council, which literally has participation from all municipalities within the very expansive watershed. You'll hear a little bit more later this afternoon from our executive director of that Watershed Management Council, but it's really about creating the partnerships and the collaborations throughout the entire watershed area to be able to have our finger on the pulse of what is happening within the watershed. But then what you really need is you need that partnership at the state agency level to be able to take the findings and take what we're experiencing on the ground and put it into these state programs and state action. You know, we heard a lot earlier, and this testimony on this panel has been great about the resources that are coming in. And we truly appreciate the resources that are coming in. However, it's the grant that we're working in right now is a $75,000 grant, where you really, I mean, if you were going to address this, be able to take an amount of money and just try to address this problem within our watershed, you're probably talking about $250 million. And we use that number we had a meeting a couple of years ago with DEC Commissioner at the time, Sagos, and when we used that word $250 million, he was kind of like, did you mean million or billion? And we're like, no, there's so much work that needs to be done out in these expansive watershed areas. But the most important thing is that you really need to feel as though there's a partnership with these state agencies. And from time to time, we've had great partnership. It just seems as though in the change of administrations, there's been a change in attitude, more from working in partnership at the beginning of the last 10 years to more recently where, well, no, you might not know the answers. We know the answers. We're going to start to work on what we think are the solutions to this problem. And so it's, I think it's what we all need to realize, and where the state legislature comes in, is the state legislature is always permanent. The members may change from time to time, but the state legislature usually lives a little bit longer than the executives. The executives come and go every 4 to 8 years, and it's really up to the legislature to make sure that there's the tone being set with our state agencies to make sure that these partnerships exist on the ground level.
Thank you.
Just follow up on that, Chuck. You said in your testimony that not only did we need to do more oversight, but I think you mentioned you're looking for legislative solutions to sort of streamlining the state process. Do you have specific ideas you can share?
Well, it can be said across the board with a lot of our state and federal grants that they're extremely time consuming. And, you know, when it comes to staffing for our Watershed Management Council, we have 2 people, an executive director and then a watershed inspector. At our city level, we have a few more professionals that can assist at the county level, but it's very difficult and it's very time consuming. So the more that the state can be doing to streamline these processes when the money is available would be very helpful, as well as, you know, allowing, you know, every single watershed that's out there is completely different than the next watershed. And we need to have the ability. We've been working under a Wasco Lake watershed set of rules and regulations since 1984. The update that we're doing is updating like a 40-year-old document, but we need to be allowed and empowered to have those watershed rules within our unique watershed areas. So the legislature could really, I believe there might be a need to update some state legislations to provide more empowerment for local watersheds to be able to have a little bit more control over what is going on in their own watersheds. Thank you for the question.
All right, thank you. And then next question for both Blanche and Christy. You both referred to permitting issues in your testimony. Are we talking about DEC permitting? Are we talking about other state permitting? Are we talking about local permitting? What are the impediments to implementing some of the projects that you feel you need to do to address this issue?
Most of the problem is the DEC permitting process. It's
I'm sorry,
lengthy.
DEC?
The DEC, yeah, it's lengthy. We could have a project that needed to be addressed immediately. We have to go through the permitting process, and we don't get the permit until next year. You've added additional cost to a project that could have been done for maybe $10,000 or $15,000 less, and there's more work that needs to be done because the issue has gotten greater.
FLOPA is experiencing a similar issue, primarily related to invasive species control and eradication over the last several years, and now even more specifically with the new wetland regulations. It has taken a process of scheduling and coordinating, hand-pulling for water chestnut in many of our water bodies that now, previously they could be done just at the local level, schedule the event and get it done, but now some of those water bodies and areas have to require a permit. Above and beyond the herbicide treatments, that's a whole separate beast. But yes, the permitting process, as you've heard, has added numerous delays at an additional cost, and in some instances has created a process whereby projects can no longer be done within the field season that it was proposed. It's, you know, adding another year to the process to get it done, which adds time, money, and perhaps may lose interest from willing landowners to participate in programs because they were ready then and they may not be ready in the future.
Thank you. And with that, Senator Palumbo?
Thank you, Chairman. I was originally going to pass, but now I get these questions just come to mind as the more we speak. So I just think, and I'm hearing that obviously sometimes less government is more, most of the time, because we do have a lot of situations where we'll create a policy and say the agency will promulgate rules and regs, and that's where it just gives them tremendous control, like you said, to possibly even, depending on who's in power, maybe have a little bit better or worse relationship with our local governments. So it's more of a comment than anything that this is really informative, your testimony like this. And so if you could give specific suggestions that we can implement. I mean, great ideas come often from anyone. So, you know, for example, we have out in my district, we have a community preservation fund that was created by legislation that was adopted in the 5 eastern towns, so the Hampton, Shelter Island, Riverhead, and Southold. I live in the town of Southold. And That has raised over $2.5 billion. It's a 2% tax that purchasers pay on the purchase of a home. We have created exemptions. My very first bill 13 years ago in the Assembly was a first-time homebuyer exemption from that. But we've been able to chip away, and now we have that addressed. We've tweaked it in recent years. My predecessor, Ken Laval, and Assemblyman Fred Thiel created it. Now that I've been involved in the Senate for 5 years, we've made adjustments to it to include water quality projects. So again, because you can't sewer the East End, as I mentioned to the first panel, innovative advanced septic systems, additional water quality issues. We've actually created now that they can have reserve funds for larger projects accumulate over time. So that, I think, was just a tremendous piece of legislation that has been so helpful to the East End to preserve open space, to preserve our water quality, to deal with these issues. Algal blooms, of course, are a direct result, I think, of increased nitrogen and all those concerns that we have. So that was a long comment. I'm almost at 2 minutes now, but that's what we do, I guess, in this business. We like to hear ourselves speak. But generally speaking, Dan, I wasn't talking to you. You said I'm very good at it, for those of you that didn't pick up on the microphone. I see Adrian smiling as well. But at the end of the day, it's really important. So we're speaking globally, but if you can think of even a specific type of idea that would be helpful, please don't be shy. Please offer that up to the legislature and all of us so that we can ultimately implement some legislation that would ultimately give the power to you locally, but give you the authorization. So because our 5 East End towns have done tremendous work with that, for example, that type of legislation. So thank you.
Was that a question?
Do you have any questions for me?
No, comments are fine too.
Okay.
All right, we're
I would
good.
just like to say thank you because we have a full board meeting tomorrow. So I will convey your message and, hopefully that will generate some conversation and we can get back to you with some creative solutions or offerings that you may be able to help us with in the future. So thank you for that.
Yeah, that's great. No, don't be shy. Please, thank you.
All right, thank you to this panel. Thank you for your testimony. We have your written testimony, and Chuck will follow up on some of those legislative
Thank you so
items.
much.
Thank you. Thank you all. All right, our next panel, the Lake George Association, Brendan Wiltsey, Executive Director. Oswego Lake Watershed Wasco Lake, Watershed Management Council, Adam Effler, Executive Director. Mohegan Lake Improvement District, Ken Belfer, President. Skaneateles Lake Watershed Agricultural Program, Mark Berger, Executive Director. And Finger Lakes Regional Watershed Alliance, Jack Welch, President. And while they're coming down, another bit of housekeeping. If we can, we're going to try and finish by 1:15 because all of us have a Senate event we have to do at 1:15. If for some reason we're not finished at 1:15, no worries. We will take a pause. We will run over to the Capitol for no longer than 15 or 20 minutes. It's just a commitment we all have in the Capitol. And then we will come back and we will finish the hearing. So no one will be cut off. Everyone's testimony is important. But just saying that we may have to take a quick pause at 1:15 if we are not finished at that time. All right, so why don't we start to my left. The audience is right. We'll start with Brendan Wiltsey.
Great. Thank you, Chair.
Did I pronounce that correctly?
You did, yes.
All right, thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you, Chair Harcum. Senator Steck is our local representative of Lake George and members of the committee. I would first like to thank you for prioritizing this issue and for your understanding that the rise of HABs statewide needs attention. As it has been introduced, my name is Dr. Brendan Wiltsey, and I'm speaking to you today as the Executive Director of the Lake George Association, but I also have 15 years of experience studying freshwater ecosystems across the Northeast, including New York State, as an aquatic biologist. I've personally studied and witnessed the results of harmful algal blooms and know well the negative impacts economically, ecologically, and recreationally. Lake George is a globally recognized lake and serves as a living laboratory of cutting-edge freshwater research. Through our partnership with Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, IBM Research, what we collectively refer to as the Jefferson Project, we have developed the most sophisticated freshwater observing and forecasting system in the nation. The Jefferson Project is named after Thomas Jefferson, who famously stated upon first seeing Lake George that Lake George is without comparison the most beautiful water I ever saw. In 2024 alone, the Jefferson Project collected over 250 million data points on Lake George, including in-lake, tributary, and weather data. The sophistication of the Jefferson Project's research and practices truly represents the scientific frontier. At the Lake George Association, we utilize that data collected by the Jefferson Project to advocate for and implement solutions and policies that have a positive difference in favor of public health, the environment, and smart spending of taxpayer dollars. This model of data-driven policy through the Jefferson Project and the Lake George Association has been proven successful and is exactly how I would recommend approaching HABs across New York State. New York's current approach to tracking and monitoring HABs relies heavily on visual sightings and reports, which, while valuable, are insufficient for predictive management. Jefferson Project has conducted research on Lake George, Skaneateles Lake, and Chautauqua Lake, which clearly demonstrates that no two lakes respond the same way to stressors. Cyanobacterial blooms emerge from a complex interplay of nutrient loading, particularly phosphorus, water column stability, microbial ecology, and increasingly climate-driven severe weather. Without high-resolution real-time data, management actions are likely to be misdirected. This is where the Jefferson Project and a developing partnership with SUNY Albany's Mesonet program represent a compelling path forward. By integrating atmospheric data, in-lake sensor arrays, and advanced ecological models, we are developing real-time forecasting systems for inland lakes, something that has only been achieved at large scales like Lake Erie. New York now has the opportunity to lead the nation in freshwater bloom prediction at a local scale. And in fact, we believe the Jefferson Project currently operates the only near-term, high-frequency forecasting system for harmful algal blooms in small inland lakes, a potential blueprint for statewide program that leverages existing SUNY infrastructure and serves diverse communities. But we must be cautious of silver bullet solutions. The marketplace is flooded with technologies that claim a quick fix. While some may provide marginal benefit in specific contexts, they are not comprehensive or scalable. In some cases, these interventions pose ecological risks by lysing cyanobacterial cells and inadvertently releasing toxins into the water column. The science is unequivocal, there's no shortcut. Nutrient reduction, particularly phosphorus, and improved oxygen dynamics remain the foundation of any meaningful prevention and intervention strategy. One specific solution to combat HABs that we've already begun implementing across Lake George from the science generated from the Jefferson Project is the investment in sustainable design. The Lake George Association's Low Impact Development, or LID certification program, provides a comprehensive, scalable framework for mitigating stormwater runoff, a key source of nutrients to Lake George. LID's goal is simple yet powerful: to intercept every drop of runoff from the built environment before it enters our streams and lake. The program is adaptable to both new developments and existing landscapes, making it a versatile tool for municipalities and property owners alike. Adoptions of low-impact development practices are essential to building resilience of our lakes to HABs. LGA greatly appreciates any effort on any level to combat the real threats to our state's invaluable freshwater and drinking water. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we'll go to Adam Effler.
Good day, committee members. Thank you. Good day, Senators. Thank you very much for the opportunity to engage with you this morning. My name is Adam Effler. I'm the Executive Director of the Owasco Lake Watershed Management Council. I have a doctorate in aquatic science underpinned in water resources engineering. Owasco Lake was the first Finger Lake to document widespread harmful algal blooms, and drinking water purveyors subsequently installed carbon filtration systems to remove associated toxins. The efficacy of this top-down treatment under increased toxins concentrations is unknown. Based on the wide variety of New York State clean water plans that have been advanced, including TMDLs, 9-element plans, and drinking water source protection plans, as well as the lake and water model estimates used to inform plan recommendations, agriculturally sourced nutrient reduction is the clear and overarching target for protecting New York State lakes from HABs. The only proven and documented tool for reducing lake eutrophication is the bottom-up pollutant reduction approach, leveraging nutrient limitation by reducing nutrient loads to receiving water bodies. This is well documented for lakes that have successfully reduced point source loads, namely due to enhanced regulations for wastewater treatment facilities. Over several decades following the Clean Water Act, the progression of water quality regulations has led to increased funding for the development of new technologies that have vastly reduced nutrient discharges from those facilities. Furthermore, under New York State permits, those facilities are required to rigorously document nutrient concentrations and rates at their points of discharge. On the other hand, with the exception of concentrated animal feeding operations, otherwise known as CAFOs, permitting and associated certified nutrient management planning requirements for CAFOs, New York State agriculture is largely unregulated with respect to the use of commercial fertilizers and manure applications. Furthermore, without soil testing and documentation regarding the rates of applications, the amount of agriculturally sourced nutrients lost to receiving water bodies is largely unknown. When advancing new regulations of any kind, starting with common sense, equitable, and low-burden provisions help drive community understanding and consensus. Requiring nutrient management planning and the protection of riparian buffers, that is, leaving the natural landscapes and ecosystem services adjacent to watercourses undisturbed, on New York State lands are proposed low-burden regulations that would mutually benefit drinking water supply protection and nutrient mass balance efficiencies for producers. That is, fertilizer and manure costs and transport are expensive, and producers stand to benefit from the soil science utilized for nutrient management planning towards optimizing both the selection of fertilizer types and the rates of application to optimize yields. In New York State, watershed rules and regulations are established under New York State Public Health Law, Article 11, Section 1100. For New York City, these are central to drinking water protection, whereby a vast system of reservoirs in the Catskill region is protected from non-point source pollution. On behalf of Owasco Lake water purveyors, the Watershed Management Council implements 1984 watershed rules and regulations. In the interest of public safety and the protection of the public drinking water supply, the purveyors currently have 2 Article 78 complaints with the New York State Department of Health regarding the community's recently proposed update to Owasco Lake watershed rules and regulations. That is the decision not to advance the nutrient management provision within the proposed regulations, arguably the most important provision regarding mitigation of HABs based on the recommendations of concurrent clean water planning efforts. And 2, the agency's decision to terminate the community's watershed rules and regulations project in its entirety subsequent to the initial complaint. The New York State Department of Health is failing to meet its responsibility under current New York State public health law. I encourage this committee to work collectively to not only hold the Department of Health accountable concerning the efforts of Owasco Lake drinking water purveyors to update Owasco Lake watershed rules and regulations, but also to provide a clear pathway for drinking water purveying municipalities across the state to create and update their own watershed rules and regulations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we'll go to Ken Belfer.
Hello, and thank you very much for inviting me and for hosting this important session. I feel like I'm the small guy in the room. I don't have any PhDs after my name, and a mere 103-acre lake in northern Westchester County is where I'm from, Lake Mohegan. However, we have an interesting history in that in the late 1800s and early 1900s, as railroad lines were put up the Hudson, we suddenly, this sleepy little area, became the playground for New York City. So late 1800s, 500-plus bed hotel on the northern shore of the lake, a military school that Robert Moses attended, all sorts of resorts. We have a mile-long shoreline on the east side. Half a mile of that was a farm with cattle and chickens, and the septic consciousness and the agricultural awareness about runoff, none of that existed in the late 1800s or early 1900s. So surprise, surprise, we have a huge amount of what I'd call legacy phosphorus that's in the sediment of the lake at Lake Mohegan. Our average summertime phosphorus levels are 4 times what New York State sets as the standard for recreational use of a lake. We've had harmful algal blooms in 13 of the past 13 seasons, the most dramatic one being last year we had a period of drought, and things got so bad early on, late June, we're talking early July, that a mole a couple miles away was sending all sorts of calls to the local fire department about a natural gas leak. Interesting when there is no natural gas in that area. But the fire department spent 2 days scurrying around only to find out that it was the odor coming from the harmful algal blooms in the lake. So we have a lot of experience with HABs, and we've been struggling with the issue for many, many years. I want to talk in trying to address your 4 questions, first about policies that have been successful or not. And the first one is really health department, and that's beach closure policy. And the new policy that was implemented a few years ago is you close a beach merely upon the visual sighting of blue-green algae on the water. It's not based on science, it's just based on the visual sighting. That, just in terms of your monitoring and reporting, that provides a disincentive to actually report because if you're going to be closed just on a visual sighting. Previously, the County of Westchester used to, if they came out and saw what they thought might be blue-green algae, would do an on-the-spot toxin test, would take water samples, look at them immediately in a lab, look at them under a microscope, and make intelligent science-based decisions about beach closures. So are these decisions that off base? Well, for Mohegan, we took a look, and when the health department closed one of our beaches for HABs, we immediately took a water sample, in some cases a half hour after their closure, and tested it with a microcystin strip test, and found each time we did that undetectable levels of toxins. We also went through a whole season of 2023 in a collaborative study with SUNY ESF, and in 98 of the samples, of 100 samples across this season, were undetectable for toxins. And they were testing for several different toxins, not just microcystin. And 2 that were detectable were still below 1 microgram per liter, and the state standard for recreational use is 4. So, and all the samples for that entire year, of all 100, were below the standards for drinking toxins in drinking water for adults and school-age children. So I felt that we have a real disconnect here between real potential danger to people from harmful algal blooms and the policies regarding beach closures. You know, I think that the policies are too restrictive. I think they're not based on science. And would you close a hiking trail due to poison ivy sightings? And that's sort of the comparable thing. Since I've spoken too much on just one of the many points I have in my presentation, I'll just close with a plug about nutrient inactivation. This is not a new thing. It was used in New York State, studied by DC in 1987, Irondequoit Bay in 2001 through 2007, Kinderhook Lake. It's used all around. New Hampshire just put $500,000 in a HABs mitigation fund and did alum in a lake in New Hampshire in 2024. Lake Murray in Vermont in 1986, and the state is just funded in 2024 a repeat nutrient inactivant treatment. We really need to get that allowed in New York. It's been studied to death in the scientific community. We don't need to research it. The community knows how it can be safely used, and there's a bill in the Senate and Assembly right now to legalize it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ken. Now we'll go to Mark.
Thank you, Senator Harcum and the committee for allowing us to testify here today. I'm Mark Berger. I'm the Executive Director of the Onondaga County Soil and Water Conservation District and the City of Syracuse's Skinny Atlas Lake Watershed Agricultural Program. We work and assist 350 farms and multiple highway departments across Onondaga County and the three-county region of the Skinny Atlas Lake Watershed. In our decades of work with the farms using agricultural environmental management, we've been able to use and apply the dedicated funding that New York State has applied and made available to the 58 districts over many decades. These funds have helped the soil and water districts plan and implement conservation best management practices on many family farms. We have also used these BMPs to help highway departments also address non-point sources of pollution. It's important to note that the farms operating in Onondaga County have over 21 different organizations that have some sort of regulatory oversight or say in how those farms operate on a daily basis. These farms take soil tests from their fields and compute nutrient mass balance equations to determine if any additional nutrients are needed, first from manures and then from fertilizers. As it relates to nearshore, highly manicured lawns, we don't see that same level of oversight, sampling, calibration, and strategic planning that agriculture receives. Literature indicates that residential lawns can leach nitrogen up to 10 times more than natural areas. Lawns fertilized with synthetic fertilizers can exhibit an 80-time increase in nitrate leaching. Other studies in the country have shown that lawns were over-fertilized with respect to phosphorus. In fact, 61% were above recommended phosphorus values, with an additional 18% being considered in the excessive phosphorus range. These results show that human actions and landscape management are important drivers of nutrient leaching on larger scales. We strongly recommend that the approaches be taken similar to agriculture, to lessen the negative impacts of residential landscapes on the water quality. Furthermore, we strongly encourage that these landscapes be included in future 9-element plan pollution modeling. Agricultural and municipal contributions have been studied extensively and have a cache of BMP systems and funding available to support these, but the residential landscapes do not. We need an entirely comprehensive approach to be taken to lessen the impacts of the harmful algal blooms. Thank you for your time and support on this important issue.
Thank you very much. And now we'll turn to Jake.
Hello, and good morning, Senators, and thank you very much for your concerns about harmful algal blooms. Certainly concern the Finger Lakes, my representation of them through the Finger Lakes Regional Watershed Alliance. So there should be a couple of handouts that I provided to you. The first one shows how HABs have, even though we've put a lot of money into HABs over the last years, in previous years, our lakes usually have something like 30 reported HAB showings. Well, in 2024, many of our lakes, Skinny Atlas, Cayuga, my lake, Seneca, those numbers went way up into the hundreds. And another handout that I have in front of you is a NASA picture taken on September 15th of 24. In that, there's some green areas. It shows Seneca Lake, the whole, from midpoint to the top end, having a widespread algal bloom, same kind of situation on our nearby Cayuga. That kind of a bloom was totally unprecedented. I mean, cold lake like Seneca Lake having algal bloom of that severity, it can happen anywhere. So bottom line, I'm probably teaching to the choir, but you know, we've got climate change coming, and we don't seem to really be doing anything. We're not even close to getting someplace with harmful algal blooms, certainly not in the Finger Lakes. So, you know, we know how important control of HABs is. In the Finger Lakes, we supply, according to the DEC, some 2 million people with drinking water. We also provide something like 60,000 jobs tied to tourism, $3.2 billion. So, I mean, this is a very, very important thing economically to the state, as well as to the health of its population. So what can be done? Well, first, we really urge this body to fund Senate Bill 1833, which I know Senator May's been strongly behind, as well as Senator Helming from our area as sponsors. We also love that legislation because it creates a centralized, web-accessible clearinghouse for HAB-related data and will bring together state regulators and academic institutions, a much-needed marriage. And I think I'm going to be really focused here on research and how important it is. I say that as HABs are very biodiverse, depending on location, and they're incredibly good at adaptation. It will take the efforts of government, private stakeholders, and I think especially academics, citizen scientists, to assail this serious problem. Don't give up hope. HABs have not taken over every inch of water in our planet, so there's something out there that keeps them under control. We've heard about some of those things here today, including even on a microbiological level. New York State has the Water Resource Institute, WRI. It's located at Cornell, right on the Finger Lakes, but its focus has been on the Hudson River area. Not to take away from that, but we need their academic help in the Finger Lakes and other areas in the state as well. The $42 million allocation to soil and water conservation districts that we've heard a lot about here today is fantastic. And I agree with everything that's been said here about phosphates and nutrients getting controlled. But we have some lakes like Skinny Atlas and Canandaigua. Those lakes are low phosphate lakes, but they're still having serious algal bloom problems. There's got to be some research into possibly the sediments where these blooms can go down and still get nutrition. And as far as phosphate runoff or current phosphate runoff, perhaps thinking about things like eliminating any new CAFOs if those CAFOs are on lake watershed areas. That's something we could just, CAFOs can exist in places not near lakes, but lakes, they are where they are, and we can't move them. Well, and I know there's been a lot of money allocation spent in the past, but I think those things have not put together concerted efforts on behalf of widespread academic institutions. There hasn't been strong interchange of scientific information on a statewide, national, and even worldwide basis. I think that wraps up my time. Again, 1833 is a fantastic step in the right direction, and we very much appreciate all you folks are doing to try to help out this problem in the Finger Lakes region.
Thank you, Jake. Thank you all. And now we'll turn it to Senator May for the first round of questions.
Thank you, and thank you all. I really learned a lot from this panel, and I'm going to do some sort of a lightning round, quick questions. So on the Jefferson project, first of all, you said you've developed or are developing a real-time forecasting system for small inland lakes. Like how small? Is Seneca Lake small enough, or is what size are we talking about?
Yeah.
I think they'll turn it on from up above.
Yeah, that's a great question. So small to us limnologists is smaller than the Great Lakes.
Okay.
So that's the scale these systems have existed on for quite some time. Okay. The forecasting system for Lake George is fully operational. And so we get routine high-frequency forecasting for Lake George.
So second question,
Yep.
What resources do you need from the state in order to make that something that would be available to other lakes around the state?
More state investment in the Jefferson project. We've been operating for more than 10 years on Lake George. We've done some expansion to other lakes, but we think there's real opportunity. We have the model, we can show that it works, and we can expand this across the state to help other states that don't have the resources that Lake George has.
Okay, so you've got to start letting us know at budget time what you
Absolutely.
need. Okay. Second question, the nearshore lawn question was one, it seems obvious, but I just don't know what tools there are out there for regulating landscaping, private landscaping. Is that something we could do in a within a watershed?
It definitely could be done in a watershed. We've offered in the past for a 3-year period soil sampling for our residential nearshore lawns and paying for the cost of the soil analysis. And then if the soil test recommended that nutrients needed to be applied to those lawns, we would have showed the homeowner how to calibrate their spreading equipment. It was interesting, only one homeowner in each of Skinny Atlas, Atisco, and Oneida Lake watersheds took us up on that offer, and they were not, they were the very conservation-minded landowners that we've heard about, the people that are out there going for good water
So
quality.
I know the Skinny Atlas Lake watershed, and my guess is that a lot of those homeowners aren't doing their own landscaping. It seems like training for the companies that come and do that kind of thing would be important too.
It could be and should be training and education. Kind of everything we're using in the agricultural industry could apply to that industry. The DEC is involved. They require the applicators to be registered and licensed, and then also to record what's going down. But maybe there's nobody after that step that's looking and saying how much has been put down, what was put down, when was it put down, how was it applied, is it a slow release fertilizer? So probably getting some answers to those questions and then rolling out the same model that we're using for agriculture would be a good start.
Or supporting alternatives to lawns that are, native plants, maybe pollinator friendly. To the two doctors here, we heard about the need to understand the sediments more. Is that built in, say, to your model of how you predict algal blooms, and what is the role of sediments to your knowledge?
Sure. Frankly, harmful algal blooms as a relatively new phenomenon is not a well-understood phenomenon. We, through statistical regression analyses, have a sense of the dominant drivers of the blooms. And of course, nutrients being one of those prominent drivers. But with regards to the interplay between the sediments and the extent to which the sediments are providing for bioavailable sources of phosphorus for the cyanobacteria to produce, that is not well understood, and more research certainly needs to be done in that regard.
Is it being done, or do we need to do something to make sure that it gets done?
So we have, for Owasco Lake, we have an expert from SUNY ESF who's done some work on trying to understand the interplay between the invasive species, the Dreissennid bivalve mussels that dominate in the lake bottom, their ability to filter and to cycle nutrients, and the extent to which they may be releasing those nutrients back into the water column. I believe that effort speaks to some of the dangers involved with the spread of invasive species.
Right. Thank you very much.
Can I add to that?
Absolutely.
In regard to lake bottom sediment, there's a very interesting study that was presented at the Conference of Lake Associations being done by the Army Corps of Engineers and a company called Princeton Hydro that's looking at the form of cyanobacteria that resides dormant in the sediment, for instance, over the winter. They're called aconites. So they're researching that and the circumstances in which they're released from the sediment, and there's research being done on treating them at that level before a season, that if you can kill off the aconites in the sediment, you may reduce harmful algal blooms during the season.
Wow.
Thank you. Senator Steck.
Thanks, Chairman. I'm not going to let this opportunity to go by to put a plug in to my colleagues here about the Jefferson project. Being up close and personal, ringside to it actually, for a long time. The work that they're doing, the amount of data that's been collected on Lake George over the last decade is truly amazing. I don't know how feasible it would be to replicate that everywhere, but I would certainly think that a lot of the lessons that are being learned on that lake can be extrapolated and applied elsewhere. But certainly it is a special lake, as I mentioned when DEC was here at the first panel, and I'm sure you all heard me. It is a special body of water. It has a lot of resources, both public and private, available to it. But again, representing my Senate district, you know, all of 4 and parts of 2 other counties, I've got hundreds of lakes that don't have those resources. So, you know, I'm always concerned about fairness. And so in my limited time, I'm going to ask a similar version to the question that I've been asking the previous panels regarding permitting. You know, my concern is that we have a limited amount of resources. There's other problems in the state. Everyone thinks their problem is the most important problem, and that's human nature, and that's fine, and that's what advocacy is about. But of course, it'll fall to us to, you know, we just went through our annual exercise of the state budget, and, you know, while we spend a lot of money, there are still problems that we didn't address adequately there. So I'm very concerned about efficient use of our resourcing. And one of the things that came up in the last couple panels, especially the last panel from our local government partners, is the idea of permitting. And, you know, again, I want to make sure that, you know, the haves don't benefit too much over the have-nots. You know, we want to be fair in doing that. But, you know, the soil and water conservation districts, I got a lot of faith in them. They got a lot of expertise. They've been around for a while. You know, I think they're a fair arbiter. And FLOPA, I'm not as familiar with them, but again, 25 counties that they work with, and it sounds like they work extremely closely with their conservation districts. The permitting, I guess, and for the LGA, is, in your opinion, does DEC, the APA, the Lake George Park Commission, and the EPA, do they have the knowledge and the resources to, do they know what's going on, and are they good at figuring out and protecting the water quality on Lake George?
I think at a broad scale, the answer is yes, but there are areas where there's nuances that are important that I think where there's room for improvement. One example of that, we heard a little bit about it earlier today, and one of my colleagues up here testified to this. We've never detected toxins in a cyanobacterial bloom in Lake George. The Jefferson Project considers that there has not been a documented harmful algal bloom on Lake George. And I think we heard from an earlier panel about the sort of the complexities of the language that we're using here as well. So I think there is room for more conversation with our state agencies. Our focus right now, I mentioned our low impact development. I think there are incentives more on the development side. For Lake George, we don't have a lot of agriculture. It is mostly residential development and commercial development. And I think there's things on that side that we can do to encourage folks to develop in a way that is going to be protective of our water resources.
All right. And anyone else? I'm Skinny Atlas. I'd love to hear from you all too as well.
Thank you. We struggle with the delays in permits. We're supposed to have a general permit. We've got a project that's a simple stream crossing. It should fit in the general permit. And I need to say, we're not looking for a rubber stamp. We want to follow all the rules and regs. We just want to streamline the process, get the project on the ground, get to the next project. But that's not what happens. We really need general permits. We have a general permit, but sometimes the DEC doesn't follow the terms of the general permit, puts us through an individual permitting process, and it just delays substantially the project. We've got a stream project or a stream crossing project that's very simple, that's 2 years now in the permit process. It doesn't need to be.
And so 2 years later, right, the cost of everything in the construction world goes up. Time is money.
Yes.
So is your impression, is DEC loosey-goosey when it comes to permitting, or are they too tight and they need to loosen up in order to, you know, acknowledge that time is money?
Probably the latter, but to their credit, they're also restaffing and getting more capability, but those people need time on the job.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Chairman.
Just back that up. I have also heard from the Soil and Water Conservation Districts saying, this is our bailiwick, and we know what we're doing, and to go to the DEC and to go through all of this permitting and the delays and so forth when it's what we do for a living. And it's kind of, to us lake associations, why is that duplication happening when soil and water conservation districts are so good at what they're doing, and they're not going to hurt our waters?
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're all on the same team, the same goals.
Thanks.
On the permitting question, we have routine permits that we've done for pesticides, copper sulfate, for example, annually, and it all seemed like it worked routine. There was a lot of fear, not just by us, by many, with the new wetlands regulations this year, whether things will happen on time. You see the picture of blue-green algae here. One of the ways we predict when we should start copper treatments, we spent 2 years doing weekly microscopic analysis of what's happening in the water column, so that as the spring moves on, we can see when blue-green algae is starting to accumulate. I have to say we're fearful now, since we don't have this year's copper permits in place, as to whether we'll get them in before we know we really need them. So hopefully we will. We've started a new process. Of course, nutrient inactivants is a whole other thing, but we've started a new process. This relates back to the sediment question earlier. Trying something experimental, which is using beneficial bacteria in an oxygenated environment combined with aeration for muck reduction at the bottom of the lake. I don't know that it'll work or not. I hope it will. But once you start something new like that, it seems to me DC is very cautious, and rather than be your partner in helping say, hey, let's try something new that's really not harmful at all, and let's help you do it, it's more like, whoa, what are you doing? We don't have a process for this, and why are you rushing us to create one? So I'll know in a couple of months how that turns out, because we're probably submitting those permits in the next week.
Thank you. Thank you all.
All right, thank you. I have 5 minutes. There are 5 of you. So each of you take 1 minute, please. We'll start down here with Jake. What is it that New York should be doing to assist you? You're all on the front lines of this effort. What is it that New York should be doing that is not doing? 1 minute.
Again, I think really stepping up the scientific research. You've got so many other states out there that are, and worldwide, nationwide, that are having this problem. Went to a lecture or up to the NYSFOLA conference and was appalled by the high number of lakes in our country that have eutrophication. We've got to coordinate our efforts better with others and really high-end scientific research people.
Thank you. Mark.
I think we need to support all aspects of the watershed. We need to support and work with the agricultural producers, the highway departments like live edge snowplow blades to reduce chlorides, which could be a contribution. We need to work with the septic programs and enhance those. We've heard a lot about that today. Better residential lawn care programs and work on a streamlined permitting opportunity and definitely funding. If we have staff on the ground, we can do so much more. And you've been great to work with, and your continued support will be invaluable.
Thank you. Funny you should mention chloride. We just announced the other day a bill for the road salt task force statewide.
Yes.
So thank you for mentioning that. Ken.
A comprehensive, proactive program by the state on harmful algal blooms would be important. On the monitoring question, CSLAP across the state, was sampling 8 times over a 4-month period, June to September. It's been cut down as a standard to 4 times, which means once a month, June, July, August, and September. That's not going to get you better data. And some of the data that helps to measure whether there are cyanobacteria blooms in a lake have been cut out of what's being measured under the CSLAP program. So I think that should be taken a look at. Stormwater, we tried to do something that I would consider low-hanging fruit of installation of catch basin inserts into existing stormwater catch basins. And although we applied for the funding under something called stormwater retrofits, it turns out inserting a cartridge in an existing catch basin with phosphorus filtration cartridges wasn't considered a retrofit. Dosing and frequency of treatments that are allowed by DEC, I would just say, would you in late May, early June, mow half of your lawn, wait 2 weeks, mow the other half of the lawn, then come back 2 weeks after that to the first half? It's just not going to work. And so I understand balancing environmental concerns when you're using pesticides, but we're really spending money on ineffective treatments, partly because of the regulations. Thank you.
Thank you. Adam?
Thank you. I believe the opportunity that the state has to provide on-the-ground support for the organizations that are working collaboratively, collectively to face this challenge is going to be paramount, right? This is going to be a bottom dollar scenario effectively, but from my experience, I'll share with you, and this was noted earlier this morning, that there are challenges presented for the various organizations, including the districts, but also the lake associations, as well as the intermunicipal councils like ours that are working to supplement funding for the districts to do their work with regards to the capacity to actually apply for and manage the various grants that are available, right? So for our state liaisons, whereby there are instances where frankly we experience their attendance in our meeting settings, they're sharing opportunities for the grants that are available, but the bandwidth for the organizations working in this sphere to access those dollars is limited. More functional support from state staff to actually provide that assistance would be huge. Thank you.
Thank you. And Brendan.
I think the state support and expanded investment in HAB forecasting and mitigation through the Jefferson Project and continued investment in local capacity improvements, as we've heard, from agricultural practices, wastewater system upgrades, septic inspection and upgrade programs, stormwater retrofits. These are all the root cause of harmful algal blooms. And I think combined, the forecasting and modeling, as well as these investments, really could truly position New York State as a leading state in the nation in addressing this very concerning issue.
Great. Thank you all very much. Terrific panel. We appreciate your testimony. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now we move to our agricultural panel. The New York Farm Bureau, Renee St. Jacques, Acting Director of Public Policy. The Northeast Dairy Producers Association, Allison Jones Brimmer, Vice President of Regulatory and Legislative Affairs, and the Northeast Organic Farming Association of New York, Katie Belden, Policy Manager. Thank you, sir.
I think this is going pretty well. Yeah, good conversation.
Yeah.
All right. So 5 minutes on the clock. Renee, you're up first. Thank you.
There, is this working? Yep. Good morning. Yeah, thank you, Senator Harcum. Thank you, Senators, for the opportunity to speak on this important issue today. I'm Renee St. Jacques, Acting Director of Policy at New York Farm Bureau, which represents farmers from across the state. From what has been said today, we know that HABs damages ecosystems, threatens water quality, public health, but it also impacts agricultural livelihoods. Farmers care about water quality as it impacts farm families and farm animals. Without healthy soil and clean water, we cannot produce the food and fiber to feed our communities. And farmers want to be part of the solution. These blooms pose a growing threat to water quality and aquatic ecosystems and public health, and agriculture wants to be part of the solution to this. But there are multiple reasons for HABs to be present in water bodies, as we've heard about today, including wind direction, shape of the water body, water movement, higher temperatures, and, like has been said, excess nutrients. Wastewater issues, stormwater runoff, agricultural runoff, but also invasive species, those mussels, can cause that elevation in nutrients. And there needs to be more research done on the causes of HABs because there is not just one contributing factor. There are the State Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit, the SPEDIES permit requirements for farmers with over 300 cows or more, and implementing a comprehensive nutrient management plan, which the Commissioner talked about, Commissioner Ball. There are statistics that show that the important mitigation efforts these farmers are implementing is working, but there is also the Agricultural Environmental Management AEM program, which is the voluntary program. It's science-based, it assesses the environmental risks, and implements the best management practices that work for those farms. And AEM programs have been directly integrated into the HAB action plans. It supports a tiered planning process from farm assessments to conservation planning and proven practices that reduce the runoff. And by adopting these conservation practices, such as we've talked about today, improving manure and fertilizer management, cover cropping, establishing riparian buffers, enhancing soil health, these are all things that are being done to reduce phosphorus loading into our watersheds. AEM is voluntary, and so it's hard to figure out how many farms are doing this, but they are implementing these practices. The Census of Agriculture for New York shows from 2017 to 2022, there was a 12% increase in the use of cover crops, and there was a 25% increase in the use of no-till practices. So farmers are utilizing these practices. The DEC monitoring reporting system is working. I'm thinking, let's not overhaul the system. Let's go with additional funding and improve what is already being doing and add some more monitoring. There's also enforcement when it comes to water quality violations, and agriculture is just one segment of those. For example, in 2022 report from the Owasco Lake Watershed Inspection and Protection Division, only 6% of those reported incidents were connected to agriculture, and only one was a violation. And any size farm can receive a water quality violation if that action that the farm is taking is impacting water quality. There have been years of work done to reduce phosphorus runoff, and it is working. And as was said in the last panel, research is needed to find out why specifically HABs are still occurring in bodies of water where phosphorus levels are low or below the threshold, and when there's no agriculture around that body of water. Why is it still happening? Farmers will continue to implement these best management practices, but there needs to be more focus on these other causes and how to mitigate those impacts. Farmers want to be part of the solution of the problem of HABs, and with the right support, we can simultaneously protect water quality and sustain agricultural viability. And farmers are committed to be stewards of the land and water. Our goal is to have good land, good soil, and clean water. And with this shared responsibility and science-driven policy, we can protect waterways while maintaining productive farms so that we can continue feeding our communities. So thank you.
Thank you. Allison.
Hello, thank you so much for your time and attention to this important matter today. My name is Allison Jones-Brimmer. I'm with the Northeast Dairy Producers Association. NEDPA was founded more than 30 years ago by farmers on a commitment to environmental stewardship. Farmers are the original stewards of the land, and New York's dairy farmers are committed to preserving our natural resources for generations to come. The agriculture community has a strong desire to protect water quality. It's essential for our farmers' livelihoods, including animal health and food processing, and farmers and industry partners enjoy living and recreating on lakes throughout the state. In addition to this intrinsic stewardship ethic, we also are increasingly being required to show sustainability measures to maintain milk markets, or are incentivized to do so by receiving premiums. In terms of HABs monitoring, we feel that DEC's online system for reporting suspected blooms allows for a robust monitoring and reporting system, and it is available to the public. It's a clearinghouse for citizen scientists, and any efforts to expand or improve monitoring and track HABs in the future should really build off this existing work being done by DEC. In addition to regular monitoring, DEC provides quality assurance for clean water plans such as 9-element plans, TMDLs, HAB action plans across New York's watershed. This allows each plan to be locally driven and meet the unique needs of that watershed while ensuring robust scientific criteria are met, and creates some consistency for soil and water conservation districts and farmers who work across multiple watersheds. Farmers and their technical service providers have worked for more than 2 decades to address water quality goals, in particular reducing phosphorus runoff from our farmsteads and fields. As a result, many of our surface waters are staying under the thresholds previously identified as high risk for HABs. New York State's environmental conservation law requires farms with 300 or more cows to obtain coverage under a speedies permit prior to operation. New York State is one of the few states that has stricter standards than the Federal Clean Water Act. No farm, regardless of size or permit coverage, is allowed to contribute to a water quality violation and impact New York's water resources. Under the Speedies permit, farms must have a third-party certified planner to create a specific comprehensive nutrient management plan. It prescribes practices that must be implemented and maintained at the farmstead and the amount, application method, and timing of applying manure and fertilizer for each field. An updated phosphorus index is being implemented for permit holders, which has been shown to drive better management decisions toward practices that reduce phosphorus losses. Several stats have been shared here today about farmers' commitments to improving water quality, improving and putting into place best management practices. Partners for a Healthy Watershed launched a decade ago, which was a partnership in the Finger Lake region to help farmers understand water quality issues in their watersheds and identify practical solutions. The recent Cayuga Lake total maximum daily load for phosphorus shows that the fruits of that work is paying off. It estimates the region is a third of a way toward its goal of a 30% reduction in phosphorus since 2013 due to projects and practices funded through New York's Ag Non-Point Source and water quality implementation programs. And reductions would be even greater if we accounted for projects funded through USDA's Natural Resource Conservation District, Conservation Service, and the vast efforts that farmers invested in without state or federal funding. Even without these projects added in, agricultural projects accounted for 58% of the individual projects and 97% of the estimated reductions achieved between 2013 and 2022 in Cayuga. Similarly, the Owasco Lake watershed farms have made great progress toward goals outlined in the 9-element plan, and it exemplifies the commitment of permitted and non-permitted farms to be good stewards of the watershed. As has been mentioned, while we have continuous improvements in sustainability and conservation practices on farms, HABs continue to be problematic across the state, and watersheds that both have and do not have activity, agricultural activity, and independent of phosphorus levels. It is clear that more research is needed on the causes of HABs and how to prevent and mitigate them. The latest research does not point to one single source of a cause, and we need to continue to understand that while nutrients play a role, phosphorus levels have been found to be relatively stagnant in some lakes, and those lakes are still having HABs present. We know that climate change, rising water temperatures, invasive species, extreme weather events, and other factors are contributing to HABs, and more research is needed. I think overall, the Department of Ag and Markets in DC are doing a good job. We need a whole community approach to addressing this issue. Thank you.
Terrific. Thanks so much. Katie.
Senator May and Senator Harcum, thank you so much for hosting and for this opportunity to share the Northeast Organic Farming Association of New York's perspective on addressing harmful algal blooms. I'm Katie Baildon, and I manage our policy and advocacy work at NOFA. So NOFA New York has also been around for about 30 years, and we provide farmer-to-farmer education, technical support, and connect consumers with local organic products while advocating for just, resilient food systems. And as a USDA-accredited certifier of organic, we proudly certify about 1,000 of New York's nearly 2,000 organic farms and businesses. New York's strong agricultural sector not only feeds millions, but also plays a vital role in protecting our state's water bodies and ecosystems. Without proper management, New York's nearly 7 million acres of farmland can threaten watersheds and pollute drinking water, contributing to HABs. A growing share, though, of New York's farmland, over 980,000 acres, is under organic management. Organic systems protect water by improving soil infiltration, reducing runoff and erosion, and avoiding contamination from synthetic inputs. As climate change brings more frequent, intense rainfall to the Northeast, the risk of water contamination rises. Heavy rainfall carries fertilizer nutrients, mainly nitrogen and phosphorus, toxic pesticides and herbicides into waterways, enabling the growth of HABs. However, organic practices can mitigate these risks in our waterways while building farm resilience. Organic agriculture has long led in climate-friendly soil building innovations and the use of non-synthetic inputs. Organic soil management includes practices like maintaining year-round plant cover, reducing tillage and chemical use, integrating cover crops, improving pasture and manure management, and planting buffers to reduce runoff and erosion. These practices result in organic farms having more organic soil, organic matter in the soil, more biological activity, and lower compaction. These measures of healthy soil indicate that organically managed soils have a greater capacity to absorb water, preventing flooding and runoff of nutrients. When runoff does occur on organically managed land, there is less risk of waterway contamination because it is largely synthetic pesticide and herbicide-free and is less likely than chemically farmed land to release nitrogen and phosphorus into waterways. Studies have also shown that organically managed soils are less likely to leach nutrients into the groundwater. Organic farming not only protects water quality and builds climate resilience, but it's also a fast-growing sector. Last year, U.S. organic sales reached $71.6 billion, which was a 5.2% increase, outpacing the growth of the overall food market. And the USDA Organic Census ranks New York second in certified acreage and sixth in organic farm gate sales. New York can further support ecologically beneficial, environmentally resilient farming and help farmers access the growing organic market by, one, supporting the transition to organic agriculture. For example, in California, their climate scoping plan aimed for a 20% of California's cultivated acres to be organic by 2045. New York could use cap and invest funds to support similar transitions. Incentivizing manure management practices that mitigate runoff and build soil health, including rotational grazing and composting manure. Those practices could be especially incentivized in the Climate Resilient Farming Program implemented by Soil and Water. Next, integrating organic into marketing and procurement. Research has showed that states that do invest in outreach and technical assistance to the organic sector experience strong returns. Next, creating a New York State Organic Advisory Committee, including organic farmers in agriculture and in markets advisory roles. Their insights can help to drive sustainability industry-wide, as well as help identify barriers to growth within the organic sector. And finally, hiring dedicated organic staff. Having knowledgeable, responsive state staff dedicated to organic farming in the Department of Agriculture and Markets could support wider engagement of organic farmers in state programming and support the sector's growth. At a time when federal support for farming, especially mid-sized and smaller scale farms that we have in New York and in the Northeast, is being revoked, New York has a real opportunity to step up and support farm viability by prioritizing efforts for New York farms to stay resilient, profitable, and positively contribute to New York's treasured ecosystems. Thanks.
Thank you all so much for your testimony. Senator Steck.
Thank you, Chairman, and thanks all for being here today. Agriculture and its contribution to nutrient loading in our waterways, is certainly is right in the bailiwick to ask your three organizations. I'm just curious, what's your experience or perspective on the balance that you see from the state regulators in general regarding education versus regulation versus enforcement? Do we have a good balance there, or is it too dominant in one area over the other? I'm curious from the ag perspective what your experience is with the bureaucracy.
I'll take that first. I think there is a good balance right now. There is mitigation efforts that are being supported. There's programs, there's funding. There is enforcement, as I talked about before. And so I think that improving that and making sure that there's funding still going towards those programs and supporting the soil and water conservation districts works, because they're working directly with farmers. So I think that we're at a good point. I think that, like I mentioned before, it's the research and more information needed on the other impacts and what's causing HABs and finding out what those other mitigation efforts. I think agriculture will keep doing what we're doing and helping with the solution. All of agriculture, all types of farms, all size farms, we're all trying to help find be the solution to the problem, but there's other impacts happening, so we need to focus on those as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think enforcement is a key component of the work being done, so you have to find that balance and make sure that enforcement piece is there. NEDPA has been involved in a collaborative partner in the CAFO permit and work groups to help further what that enforcement needs to look like, along with what incentives and what programs need to be out there. I think we need to make sure that some of the things that are existing are always fully staffed and fully funded to make sure that they are operating as well as they can be.
Thanks.
Yeah, I want to echo that last point. Investments in education and programming, existing education and programming, really need to be increased over time. You know, we heard from Commissioner Ball earlier about the oversubscription of programs like climate resilient farming. And so I think that really speaks to the need to invest more energy and money into expanding the work that the soil and water conservation districts are doing. So building up that education and outreach and public programming is really necessary and needed in order to improve soil health and nutrient management and manure management on farms. So I've heard sort of like anecdotally from a lot of our members that, you know, Soil and Water is less interested in working with farms with fewer resource needs, which makes sense, but also those farms have opportunities to really grow and build their own soil health and their own practices and be leaders within their community. And there's not always the resources for them to engage with their local districts in that way.
All right, thank you very much. That's it, Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Steck. Senator May.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here. And I hear you when you talk about all of the different innovations that farmers are implementing to try to reduce runoff and improve soil and all of those things. But I also, as I asked the commissioner, the AEM program has done a lot of good things, but it is voluntary. And the last time I looked, and admittedly it was a couple years ago, for the Owasco Lake watershed, it was only about half of the farms that were participating. So I have two questions. One is, what are you doing to get more farms involved? And the other is, at the time when I asked, I was told, and one of you mentioned this, that there are a host of other programs that farmers might be involved in that aren't AEM. Is there an effort to map those, to kind of really show us who's participating, who's doing what, and where might, if somebody's trying to improve water quality in a lake, there might be specific places they would want to target to make a difference?
Yeah, I think one thing that's really hard to know is what investment is going on out there outside of a state or federal program. So undertaking an effort to map the existing projects and get a count of what acreage or what sites, how much is out there that we're doing to improve best management practices, improve water quality and soil health would be a great initiative. There is the AEM program being voluntary, incentive-based program. One thing that's really important to remember about that is that operating it that way gives farmers more of an ability to have their unique needs met and make sure they're doing things that are feasible for them and most impactful for them, instead of dictating you have to start with this particular practice, or you have to start with this particular step. And we find that those practices stay in place for the long term. When a farm goes through an incentive-based program, that they have some say in how they implement it, they're really committed to doing that and to keeping that practice in place for a long time. So we found that that's been really valuable with the AEM program. And at the same time, you have to add what the AEM program numbers are to what the CAFO permit numbers are, because those farms are required to put practices in place, have that comprehensive nutrient management plan, and follow it. Okay. So I do think there is an opportunity to do some research to understand what the whole gamut of state-funded, federal-funded, and local, or farmer-funded or landowner-funded projects are out there.
Yeah. Let me also ask you, because I know I hear a lot in these watersheds about the role of the roads and the ditches And, the runoff is happening in a lot of places and from a lot of sources, but wondering to what extent are the farms and the farmers collaborating or in communication with the people managing the roads and, making sure that we're taking a comprehensive approach, especially if it's potential agricultural runoff that's going into these ditches.
I think I echo what Allison was saying when providing all of that information on what's being done, trying to find out what mitigation efforts are being done across the state when it comes to the farms and the farms outside of these state programs. But I think that's a good idea, is having more of that collaboration. I think some of that is happening depending on the county, the area, and how much involvement and discussions that are going on local level. We see some areas where the officials who are helping with the improvements on the lake and the water bodies, they're working together. And I think that we can have more of that improved collaboration. We've seen that with a few of our groups that over the years we've had conversations, and I think that needs to keep happening. We need to have an open door and make sure that everyone's working together. And I know that there are a lot of farmers who want to do that. And with New York Farm Bureau and our other associations here today, we're trying to share that information with the farmers on the AEM program, on the other types of programs that can help them with these mitigation efforts. So we are trying to share that information.
Great. I toured a farm in Cayuga County where they literally went around after the trucks and cleaned manure off the roads that might have been fallen off the trucks, and it improved relations with their neighbors as well as reduced runoff that might be going down the road. So there seemed to be some pretty low-hanging fruit there. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator May, and thank you all again for your testimony. And, as you all accurately mentioned, there are a lot of factors that contribute to HABs, but you're the ag panel, so we'll talk about just on the ag side. We've heard testimony today about really model collaborations between farms and soil and water districts. We've heard testimony regarding some tension between local governments and the agricultural community. We know that some of the programs are largely voluntary, some are mandatory. So what can we do as a legislative body to help incentivize the types of collaborations that you were talking about? Where is New York falling short in assisting farmers to be more proactive and provide resources or legislative guidance? If you'd all take about a minute on that. We'll start with Katie.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think if we look to what some other states have done, we could set some goals, right? So like setting goals for acreage of cover cropping, setting goals for transitions to organic, and setting goals at the state level can help us to have a benchmark to work towards. That can help with, folks like us doing outreach to farmers. It can also help with identifying, what resources are needed financially at the state level in order to meet some of those goals. Right now, we're working from a place of do we have enough? We don't currently have enough resources at the local level to be meeting the needs or the demands of the communities. And so, if we're able to set goals, we can sort of look to the future and sort of build budgets that reflect the needs of the communities. And so I think that's one opportunity that we have as a state to really be proactive, and just echoing what so many others have said about continuing to invest in soil and water and make sure that they have the money to carry out the programming. Yep.
Thank you very much, Katie. Allison.
Yes, with this question, immediately what comes to mind is the oversubscription of some programs and how farmers want to do really good work and put best management practices in place that sometimes are out of reach for them. So making sure there's adequate or improved funding for the AEM program, Soil and Water Conservation Districts, Eastern Finger Lakes Coalition, Ag Non-Point Source Pollution Control, Pro-Dairy, Cornell's Nutrient Management SPEAR Program, Dairy Advancement Program, and Cornell Ruminant Center. I listed all of those in my written testimony as well. Just really important research and implementation of best management practices through those programs, and they really need to be funded to the full capability to see the results from them.
Terrific, thank you. And Renee?
I echo all of the programs that Allison just listed. We certainly need that support and that funding towards those programs and more incentives for farmers to take on these mitigation efforts on their farms. And I say all size farms, all different types of farms.
Can I pop in?
Yeah, is that?
When you mention incentives, you mentioned that before. Can you mention, are there specific incentives that we can either do or create to help incentivize farmers?
I think that, like you said, with the AAM program, there is incentive-based program, so having programs similar to that, and I think that that's a way to go with. I think we can get back to you on some more specifics on, and we can go back to our farmers and say, what is there specific that's missing? Because I haven't heard that there's missing. I think I've heard that there is not enough funding, that the programs that there are out there are being there's not enough money to go to all the projects that are wanting to be done. And so I can get back to you on that piece of it. I think I just want to make sure that that, like you said before, there is some of the target on agriculture and the negativity. And I think that the more that we can talk about this issue in a way that says we want farmers to be a part of the solution and to work together, I think that would go a very long way of getting everyone.
And I think that's the tone we're trying to get across today. This is not a blame game or a gotcha thing. It's how do we collaboratively all work on this challenging issue together.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for your testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We now have our panel of academic research from Cornell CALS. We have Dr. Art DiGentano. I apologize. Please correct me if I got that incorrectly, from the Department of Earth and Atmospheric Sciences, and from SUNY Stony Brook, New York State Center for Clean Water Technology, Dr. Christopher J. Gobler. Thank you. Did I butcher your names? All right, correct me, please.
For that.
No, please.
DiGentano.
DiGentano. All right, thank you. Mine is butchered all the time, so I apologize for that.
No problem at all.
All right. So with that, why don't we start with Dr. DiGentano?
Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity to discuss how weather and climate conditions impact harmful algal blooms. As you said, I'm Dr. Art DiGentano. I'm a professor in the Department of Earth and Atmospheric Science in the College of Ag and Life Sciences at Cornell. I'm also the director of a federally funded NOAA Northeast Regional Climate Center. Over my 30-plus career, my research is focused on how weather and climate information is used in decision-making. Like many of the sectors that my center work touches on, climate and weather conditions, as we've heard this morning, exert an influence on both the occurrence and management of harmful algal blooms. Our temperature data sets are already being used to model water temperatures, determine favorable environmental conditions for HAB-producing algae, and develop models of lake stratification. Warmer water temperatures, of course, create a favorable environment for HABs and increase their frequency, duration, and intensity. More extreme rainfall can lead to increased runoff that contributes to HAB occurrence. Just this month, my center mapped an extensive area of greater than 2-inch rainfall totals that affected the Hudson Valley. Such rainfall events are probably one of the strongest climate change signals that we see in the Northeast, and our data show that. In 2011, 8 greater than 2-inch rainfall events occurred at West Point. And West Point has a record that goes back to 1890, and that's the first time that they had seen that many rainfall events of that magnitude in a year. While these data show how climate conditions are conducive to HAB, they're changing through time. And actually, they're just that, data. What we really excel at is transforming that data into actionable information where farmers and other stakeholders can use that. We've been able to leverage our federal resources to partner with New York State's Integrated Pest Management Program, particularly their network of environment and weather awareness, where the raw data that they collect are transformed into information. I'm going to pick on some ag examples here. Farmers use this day in and day out at this time of year to decide whether and how much they're going to thin their apple blossoms. Farmers use this, growers use this to scout for insects based on antecedent weather conditions. Unfortunately, like many federal programs, our funding has recently undergone intense scrutiny, but despite strong support from the state's senators and representatives in Washington. Other NRCC tools are more directly related to HABs, and I'd like to point out a website that we're currently in the midst of development. It's kind of in the beta stage, which actually looks at runoff risk from the landscape. So basically 24/7, a user can look at that and judge what the risk of runoff is based on soil conditions, the weather forecast for the coming years. We've used that mainly in kind of agricultural settings, but listening to this morning's testimony, just last year we launched that to look at sustainable lawn care, same type of thing, runoff from the landscape, particularly in Westchester County and things like that. You mentioned manure on roads, the same thing can be said as lawn fertilizer on sidewalks. So how does this all address the questions at hand? Clearly, forecasting and weather conditions need to be a key part of successful ways to reduce the occurrence of HABs. The use of operational decision support should also be part of the toolbox in every municipality's lake associations or stakeholders' toolkit. Unfortunately, climate change models are suggesting that the conditions for HABs are likely to increase in the future. But on the positive side, emerging technologies in data science, environmental monitoring, and weather forecasts provide a way to overcome this hurdle if we use them correctly. The state's efforts to do these things should indeed look at these emerging technologies. In closing, I'd like to offer a few kind of concluding thoughts. We've heard a lot of these this morning, but I want to put maybe a little different spin on them. Monitor, but monitor smartly. Often we monitor to have sufficient data, but the resources invested in research do not reach their full potential unless that research can be applied operationally. In my field, we call that the valley of death. We have the research, but it's not quite there to be useful. Consider data quantity, but not quality, and that might sound weird coming from a scientist. I'm not saying deploy poor sensors, but I'm saying more sensors might be better in some cases. We might allow us to, especially when we merge them with machine learning and things like that, how can we drive strategies to put the high-quality sensors in the right place? How might we find things in the landscape that we don't see with just sensors in some places or the other? And we have to have that transformation of data into resources. So since my buzzer buzzed there, I will pass it on to my colleague.
Thank you very much. Doctor?
Senator Harkin and esteemed committee members, thank you for having me. I'm Chris Gobler. I'm a SUNY Distinguished Professor at Stony Brook University. I've been studying harmful algal blooms since 1992. They were the subject of my master's and PhD degree at Stony Brook. I've had literally hundreds of publications on HABs, and I'm the editor of the international peer-reviewed journal called Harmful Algae. So HABs have been my life's work. Cyanobacterial HABs are a global health threat. Last month, I attended the International Workshop on the Control and Mitigation of Cyanobacterial HABs held at the University of Amsterdam, attended by experts from around the globe. And at the meeting, there was a global consensus that the most effective way to mitigate freshwater HABs is to mitigate phosphorus and nitrogen. And when addressing nutrient loads, it's critically important that a one-size-fits-all approach is not taken. Every lake is different, and nitrogen or phosphorus can limit and control these blooms. And their importance can depend not only on the water body, but the type of cyanobacteria present. And the sources of nitrogen and phosphorus are diverse, as we've already heard about this morning. They can differ by watershed and include fertilizer, wastewater, the atmosphere, runoff, rivers, groundwater, and internal loading, such as sediments, which can be very important. Moving forward on mitigating nutrients without knowing the element that's limiting the cyanobacteria and the precise source will be ineffective and, in fact, potentially a waste of money. And more importantly, there's emerging research that shows if you address the wrong nutrient element, these harmful algal blooms can actually become more toxic and therefore more dangerous. So it's critically important that in every water body we know exactly what we're targeting and why. Now, in happy news, as you're well aware, New York State has made incredible investments in mitigating nutrient flows. And I'd like to highlight the efforts of the New York State Center for Clean Water Technology at Stony Brook University, which has been supported by and large by New York State through the DEC and the DOH. Founded in 2015, the center's mission is to harness science to engineer clean water solutions for the protection of public health and the environment while promoting economic development in New York State and beyond. Regarding nitrogen, the center has developed an on-site septic system called the nitrogen-removing biofilter that removes more than 90% of nitrogen and emerging contaminants from wastewater, which outperforms any system available in New York State and maybe even beyond that. The Center for Clean Water Technology is also laser-focused on phosphorus. As you're well aware, there's 178 water bodies in New York State that are listed as impaired by the DEC because of high levels of phosphorus. And in 2024, in good news, the DEC came up with first-ever guidance values for phosphorus levels in water bodies. Those guidance values, however, can only be achieved with the proper technology for reducing levels of phosphorus. And in the past several years, the center has made incredible progress towards developing novel, affordable, and effective technologies to remove phosphorus from wastewater and other water sources. In fact, we can remove now 99% of the nitrogen coming in from wastewater, and that will be effective for agriculture as well. And the center is now piloting these technologies in several upstate communities. New York State has one of the best harmful algal bloom monitoring programs in the entire country. In 2024, the DEC had reports of over 2,000 HABs in more than 200 water bodies and 56 of the 62 counties, which really speaks to the comprehensive nature. I'd like to emphasize, however, that no county in New York State had more harmful algal blooms in freshwater bodies in 2024 than Suffolk County on Long Island. And that wasn't a one-year fluke. Every year since monitoring began in 2014, Suffolk County has had more water bodies with freshwater HABs than any other county in all of New York State. On the mitigation front, I already stated earlier how important nutrients are. In many cases, organically enriched sediments can be the largest sources of nutrients, and in some cases, dredging or capping those sediments might be effective, but it's also very expensive. There are now newly emerging photocatalytic approaches that can be effective at degrading organically enriched sediments and may be a cost-effective alternative to dredging. Finally, given the clear and present danger of HABs, emergency mitigations are also clearly desirable. And there's many different approaches out there for that, but I'll emphasize and quote from a paper my colleague Dr. Alan Wilson from Auburn University published just last year. He did a meta-analysis at looking at all these things. The title of his paper was, "Most treatments to control freshwater algal blooms are not effective." And actually that was affirmed at the international meeting I attended last month. And so the DEC has done a very good job at vetting these different technologies, and that job will be even more important going forward. Thank you.
Thank you both very much, and we'll turn to Senator May. All right, Senator Steck.
All right, thanks, Chairman. Thank you both for being here. Dr. DiGaetano, my apologies.
No problem.
You said something that intrigued me, and you pointed it out. As an academic, more data, usually quantity over quality, although in my experience, academics would prefer lots of both. But, we have finite resources, both at the state level or just in general, whether we're talking about money or energy or staffing resources. So we had earlier on, I represent Lake George and the Jefferson Project. And again, it's a special lake, a lot of resources available to it. And we want to take advantage of that and apply it elsewhere. In your opinion, and actually a question for both of you though, where would you go first to try to move the needle on, given either from a research standpoint, collecting data, or from what you know already in your experience, if we wanted to move the needle in New York State quickly on limiting and reducing harmful algal blooms, where would you put our resources first?
Yeah, I was too intrigued by the Jefferson Project, which I'll admit I did not know nothing about until I was here
as
this
academics,
morning.
I would highly recommend you. I think you both find it interesting. Google it. It is fascinating.
I did while I was up in the audience. And I think that's an example there where getting the different silos perhaps in the state to collaborate. I sensed your enthusiasm for looking at that broader in the Finger Lakes and other parts of the states. And I think there's mechanisms to do that by collaboration. There's also ways to collaborate in those regards where, data is nice, but there's a lot of data that is already out there. I look at some of the products that my federal center looks at, rainfall data from rain gauges and radars that are across the landscape. This runoff tool that I talked about is a very high resolution NOAA model, which brings in satellite data information. So that's in the landscape. When you couple that with observations from in situ sensors in the right place, right, that's kind of helps you out. It keeps you honest in these broad data scale sets, and it kind of lets you ground truth those with the real data. The other part of that as well is, I think broadly putting sensors around the landscape in smart places is a way to really look at where do we have to worry about monitoring? Where do we get the most bang for our buck in looking at mitigation efforts and things like that? Things fall through the crack. Again, using my meteorological example, we had rain gauges across the country that would have filled a tennis court if you looked at them. But then as we bring in radar, we can see these fine-scale details, and that advances the knowledge in the landscape.
Yeah, well, as I said in my comments, firstly, I think the investments already made toward addressing over-enrichment and overflow of nutrients into water bodies by the state, it's money very, very well spent. But again, as I also mentioned, that has to be coupled with water body examination of what the nutrient sources are. And that can be surprising sometimes. I can tell you, I've done studies of water bodies right next to each other to say, what's the most important source of nutrients? And I can literally point to water bodies where one, it's agriculture, the next one, maybe 1,000 feet away, it's actually wastewater, right? So it really depends on that watershed. And in other cases, it could be sediments for fresh water. I've found that as well for phosphorus. So, and those three examples are all within, I said the two are right next to each other, but those three different examples were all within, I don't know, a dozen miles or so. So those sorts of deep dives is money very well spent. If you're going to be putting in millions of dollars for mitigating nutrients, you want to make sure that you're going after the right source.
Tony, they were saying that Suffolk County has the most harmful algal blooms than any other county in the state of New York, so get on that.
Well, Dr. Gobler knows better than anybody else, so he's right, I guarantee it.
DEC
Good to see you,
data.
Doc.
Yeah. Good to see you.
Thank you. Thanks, Chairman.
All right, thank you very much. I don't have questions per se, but I would like to follow up with you both offline. Dr. DiGaetano, for your Lower Hudson Valley, Westchester work, that's my district. And Dr. Gobler, for the septic work, it's been a fascination of mine. Back when I was a Westchester County legislator, we actually had a septic subcommittee of the Environment Committee, and I've followed the work out there, and would love to come out this summer and see some of those technologies. But I think you both said it is how do we best how do we best take the research that you and other researchers are doing and see that policies that we and the regulators institute are really wise in getting the bang for the buck. So we thank you both for your testimony today, and we'll follow up offline for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you both very much. All right, our last panel, and certainly not the least panel. This is our Environmental Advocates panel. So Citizens Campaign for the Environment, Adrian Esposito, Executive Director. Save the Sound, David Ansel, Vice President for the Center of Water Protection. Riverkeeper, Jeremy Cherson, Associate Director of Government Affairs. And the New York section of American Water Works Association, Judith A. Hansen. Thank you all for coming down. And I think if we all just keep streaming along, we will make our 1:15 deadline. And we thank you all so much for joining us. All right, so why don't we go from my left to right, and we'll start with our good friend Adrian Esposito. Thank you for being here, Executive Director, Citizens Campaign for the Environment.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Senators. I'm Adrian Esposito, Citizens Campaign for the Environment. I know we're under a very tight timeline right now, so I'm going to ignore my testimony, and I'm going to get right to the bottom line. We've heard a lot of great testimony today, and thank you so much for holding this hearing. I mean, I've been doing this work 40 years, and this is the first time I've seen a Senate hearing on the issue of harmful algal blooms. So it's way overdue and much needed, so thank you so much for doing it. You've heard a lot today. We hear a lot of different reasons for HOBs, but we can't control the weather all the time, right? It's difficult to control stormwater many times, although we are trying. You know what we can control? Sewage. We can control how we treat our sewage. And on one hand, New York State has been great for allocating the funding. Thank you for that. Thank you for this year. In the Senate budget, at least, there was an increase of $700 million proposed for water infrastructure to help us treat our sewage. Fortunately, got knocked back down to $500 million, but that's still a great number. You've seen the president's budget, which has decreased water infrastructure funding by 80%. We'll see what Congress does with that. We don't have great hopes, frankly. But, you know, the saying is society puts their money where their priorities are. And that's what we need to do. I feel like New York State has worked on harmful algal blooms, but not taking it as very seriously as it could. I'm surprised, and I'm not saying this to sound alarmist, I am surprised no one has died yet. And the reason I say that, as you probably know, but the blue-green alga blooms that Dr. Chris Gobler was talking about cause liver failure. We've had dog deaths in New York State associated with swimming and licking the water in those ponds. The red tide, which unfortunately the area of Northport was famous for, at one point back, I believe it was 2015, it had the highest level of cells per liter of anywhere in America. 1 million red tide cells per liter. That is a saxotoxin. It causes paralysis or death. And as we were finding that out about Northport Harbor, there were reports that 6 people died in Alaska from eating contaminated shellfish with the same exact red tide and saxotoxin. So when you really look into these toxic tides, it's a very serious public health threat as well as environmental condition. So a couple of things that we would suggest. Number one is, and Senator Harckham, I have spoke about this, there is the governor's program bill that we'd like to get through the Senate and the Assembly this year, which increases the grants from $10,000 per homeowner to $20,000 per homeowner from the state to replace their old polluting septics and cesspools with the new IA systems, which will reduce nitrogen down below 19 milligrams per liter. Then, after we pass that bill specifically allows for counties that have septic replacement programs to obtain grants from the state to provide to the public. We have to ensure that the counties that need the grants have the program. They can duplicate Suffolk County's program, which is wonderful. It's working. It's subscribed right now. But the counties have to have the programs in order to use the grants. That is a big thing that we can. It's low-hanging fruit, but with a lot of meaning and a lot of impact when we get it started. Another thing we can do is continue to fund our sewage infrastructure. Because every time we upgrade a sewage treatment plant, we are actually reducing hubs. In areas like the Forge River on the South Shore in Suffolk County, Northport Harbor, every time we upgrade the sewage infrastructure, the toxic tides get reduced. The other thing we can do is a Hobbs public notification program. We have a sewage notification program. You guys might be familiar with this. It was passed in 2014, I want to say, where if the public wants to know about sewer overflows, they sign up on the New York State alert list, and then they'll get a text to their phone. We should be doing that for Hobbs also. The more the public knows, the more funding will be allocated to this problem. Was that beep for me? How quickly 5 minutes
That
goes.
beep was for you, I'm sorry.
Okay, yes, thank you.
Thank you. David?
No problem. Thank you. So David Ansel from Save the Sound, thank you very much. I'm going to try to speed through also and not read much here today. We are obviously deeply concerned about HABs at Save the Sound, and getting concerned that this is going to become the new normal in 2024. I think every major bay and harbor on Long Island was suffering from a HAB. So I'm not going to get into the causes and all that stuff, which Dr. Gobler did, and we all kind of know what the problem is. But I want to share the perspective from the Long Island Sound and talk a little bit about marine waters. So in the Long Island Sound, the biggest water quality challenges that we're facing and that are triggering HABs is wastewater pollution, stormwater runoff pollution, which includes fertilizer and animal waste, and climate change, which exacerbates wastewater pollution and stormwater pollution because of the frequency of the rain events that we're having, which is overwhelming our infrastructure. So those are big problems. And the other problem, so that's the pollution problem. We'll talk about solutions in a second. And you also solicited information about monitoring and management. And I think we in the Long Island Sound region feel that there is a data gap. There's a monitoring gap. DEC HABs and Data Archives Open New York currently exclude marine HABs. So we feel that there needs to be better monitoring in Westchester County, northwestern Nassau County, and the impaired coastal waters around New York City. So we'll just quickly get to solutions. I agree with Adrian. We need to continue to reduce our nitrogen in our marine waters. We know that that works over long term, and we have to keep doing it. So that's the Clean Water Infrastructure Act and EPF and the things that you've been doing, but we got to get the numbers up next year. And then in terms of, and I agree about the septics and the Suffolk County Water Quality Restoration Act, which was a great victory for New York. We got to get the money out. We got to get it done. We want to try to recreate that in Westchester County. We also have Line App on Long Island. I'd like to do something like that in Westchester County. Public awareness, fertilizer, reducing nitrogen in the community. And last, I just wanted to quickly mention Senator May's bill. We support the bill, but Senator May, I would just ask that we make sure that it does say all waters, but if we could fill this data gap and then do programs like what Adrian's talking about, we need the public to know what's going on in the water. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Jeremy?
Hi, can you hear me? My name's Jeremy Cherson, Associate Director of Government Affairs for Riverkeeper. Thank you for holding this hearing about the growing threat of HABs to our drinking water and systems. So let's help agency bureaucrats succeed. New York has taken positive steps with New York HABs alert system and increased DEC surveillance, but a major gap remains. There's no legal requirement for the DOH to notify the public when HABs threaten drinking water. That leaves room for confusion, delay, and communities left guessing whether their water is safe. We urge the legislature to require real-time coordination between DOH, DEC, drinking water suppliers, and the public whenever toxins are detected or suspected. Timely communication is critical for public health and maintaining trust. Also, the state's HABs action plans are useful guides, and funding from the Clean Water Infrastructure Act has made a real difference, but progress on pollution reduction has been uneven. Key cleanup plans, like the long overdue total maximum daily loads for the Mohawk and Wallkill rivers, remain unfinished. These delays have real consequences for communities already struggling with reoccurring blooms. We urge the state to finalize these TMDLs and adopt enforceable water quality standards for phosphorus, nitrogen, chlorides, and cyanotoxins. Without clear limits, it's impossible to measure progress. When it comes to solutions, short-term treatments on lakes can help in emergencies, but long-term answers lie upstream. That means cutting nutrient and salt inputs, restoring wetlands, protecting forests, and investing in green infrastructure. These nature-based strategies reduce pollution at the source and are some of the most effective tools we have. We also urge action on two fronts. First, road salt pollution. Salt pollution is a growing problem that contributes to HABs conditions. We urge the legislature to pass the road salt reduction legislation before you that you carry, Senator Harckham. Second, dam removal. Obsolete dams slow water down and create stagnant conditions where blooms thrive. Removing these structures not only restores habitats, but also improves water quality and reduces HAB risk. Finally, communities need more support. Some municipalities are managing HABs effectively with state help, but many, especially those that rely on surface water for their drinking water supply, lack the technical capacity to respond, and they often operate under outdated or non-existent watershed rules and regulations, which help downstream communities protect upstream water sources outside of their jurisdiction. We urge the state to expand technical assistance and give the DOH the authority and resources to update and enforce modern watershed protections. In closing, New York has made important progress, but HABs are outpacing our response. We need stronger standards, better coordination, smarter investments, and more support for communities on the front lines. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Judith, bring us home.
Tall order. Thank you for inviting us today and giving us the opportunity to be here. My name is Judy Hansen, and I'm the past chair of the New York section of the American Water Works Association and currently serve as their legislative consultant. Prior to my current work with AWWA, I was the superintendent of the City of Kingston Water Department, which is a surface supply, and early in my career, I was directly responsible for our algal response plan, which at the time was only nuisance algae. We weren't dealing with HABs as frequently as we are now. I will make this quick. We have 4 quick points we want to make. Drinking water utilities have been monitoring for and controlling algae growth in their sources for as long as we've been in existence, and we continue to remain vigilant in the face of the threat posed by harmful algal blooms. Most larger water systems that are most likely impacted by HABs have developed HABs response plans with the help of the Department of Health and that are incorporated in their overall emergency response plans. We do agree that developing these plans for smaller and more rural water systems, as Senator Steck alluded to earlier, poses a challenge for them, and we would ask for increased support to help those folks develop responsible plans for HABs from the DOH. We're not alone in this fight, as you heard earlier, and we'd like to acknowledge the outstanding work that's been done on that behalf by both New York State DEC and New York State DOH. Their integrated approach, we believe, has strengthened outreach, improved transparency, and enhanced protection of our drinking water and the environment, but there is more to be done. We are especially encouraged that the data from these efforts will guide prevention strategies that's rooted in science, and we ask you to continue to support these agencies so they can remain fully engaged in this work. New York is leading the way in providing a variety of funding opportunities that are designed to reduce nutrient enrichment of our water sources, which is, as we've acknowledged, is a major cause of both harmful and nuisance algal blooms. The section strongly supports the continuation and even the expansion of these funding programs and thanks the committee for their leadership in advancing these initiatives, and because they are vital to ensuring clean, resilient water sources for all New Yorkers. And finally, we'd like to conclude by saying that we support bills to reduce nutrient loading, such as Senator Harkam, your S3055, which is designed to incentivize the installation of advanced septic systems. These systems, while more expensive than conventional systems, significantly reduce nutrient runoff, which limit algal growth in both freshwater and the marine environment. And we thank you for being here today, and we welcome any questions you might have.
Well, we thank you for being here today. We thank all of you for your testimony. Senator May.
Yeah, thank you. I had a quick question for David about, you mentioned something called Line App. Can you say what that is?
Oh, sure. LINAP is the Long Island Nitrogen Action Plan, and it's a partnership between the counties on Long Island. I almost said on Long Island. On Long Island, Nassau and Suffolk, and the DEC. And it's a public awareness campaign in large part to make sure that communities understand that there's a nitrogen problem on Long Island. They have the aquifer underneath and a drinking water challenge, but it's also for the bays, beaches, and harbors all around the Sound to make sure that communities are working to reduce fertilizer use and do other things. And Adrian could talk about this in her sleep.
But you said it was really effective, and so.
I don't know that it doesn't mandate a lot of laws, but I think that you have to start with public awareness. If I came here and said I wanted to outlaw fertilizer, I don't think we'd be having a very productive conversation.
But what it does, though, it brings everyone, it brings everyone together also. So we have all levels of government, we have the stakeholders, we have the Farm Bureau, everyone is in one room, which to me sometimes is the only way you can get something done is when everyone's at the table.
Right.
Thanks.
Which
Yes, step
leads
in the
to
right
my
direction.
second question, which I asked a little bit earlier, but we've got DOH sort of is the lead agency for these issues. Does anyone here have a recommendation for it? Is that the appropriate hierarchy, or is there a better way that you could see?
When you say there's a lead agency for HABs.
Perhaps, yeah.
Okay. I mean, I don't know, I look at the DEC data set, so I don't know if there's a better approach. DOH is pretty overwhelmed, so.
Yeah, I mean, this is
That's the problem.
definitely a complicated issue because you're right, it is a health issue. It's absolutely a public health issue, but it's driven by environmental factors, right? So it's really a partnership between DEC and DOH.
And do you see them partnering in the work that you do? Do you feel like that the partnership is working, or are
No,
there
we
things that
think we
should
need to do more. We absolutely, I mean, I think they are trying, and this, we're not criticizing, we're not
Right.
faulting, but look, the proof is in the pudding, right? We have more hubs today than we had 5 years ago. We have greater duration, we have a greater frequency, and unfortunately, in some areas, there's a higher level of toxicity to some of the hubs.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Yeah, I'm thinking about Owasco Lake and the need for DOH to implement watershed rules and regulations. That's going to be extremely important. We had an algal bloom in Albany's drinking water supply, and in New York City's drinking water supply as well. New York City benefits from watershed and rules and regulations to protect the drinking water for half the state's population. So why can't smaller communities such as Newburgh or Auburn, protecting Owasco Lake, have some control over activities that will impact downstream users? We also feel like when it comes to seeker, there isn't enough emphasis put on actions under seeker that could impact a drinking water supply for downstream users. And that really should be increased so the folks downstream, and Watervliet is a great example of this, another community whose water supply is totally outside their boundaries, and they have no say in what happens to the watershed that provides their community.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Senator May. Senator Palumbo.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple quick questions, and this may have been, maybe I should have directed it more at the academic folks, but you guys are super smart and well-educated as well, so I'm going to direct it at you. I was at another meeting, so I'm sorry I had to run out. But regarding bivalves, like the zebra mussels in the River Keeper testimony, and all of you are very familiar with those concerns, that there are concerns, I guess, that they contribute by eating other organisms that could eat up the phosphorus and nitrogen. So what's that interplay? I know the biodiversity is necessary so that they can all, like oysters, for example, something like 60 or 600 gallons a day. They're very good. They're good for our water quality in a way. So just educate me a little bit on that again, because as far as removal of phosphorus and removal of nitrogen, I thought that some of them were helpful, and certain invasive species, of course, were not.
I won't pretend to be an expert on that, but my understanding from our scientists is that when those types of bivalves that are especially invasive species in certain water bodies, they entirely change the chemistry in the ecosystem inside that water body. And that has a cascading effect on different organisms that eat up that phosphorus, potentially the other nutrients, and that's what can cause the change. And while oysters in New York Harbor are incredibly beneficial at cleaning sewage pollution out of the harbor, it's not necessarily going to be as helpful in Lake George or other water bodies that are not used to having these creatures, and that's what can lead to the problems.
They filter hypodermic needles, the whole thing. Right?
I mean, the rule of thumb is if it's a native species, an oyster, a hard-shell clam, they're good. If it's a native species to that water body, they benefit the water body. That's just the general rule of thumb.
But this is why it's important for things like on the Mohawk River and the Barge Canal in particular. In particular, on the Barge Canal, we've been pushing for separating the Great Lakes and the Hudson watershed system with a physical barrier to prevent invasive species, because the threat is only going to grow. We have the threat of carp coming through the Mississippi and the Great Lakes system, as well as other. But there are species that could impact HABs that we can't predict in the future, and separating those systems.
But I would
I've
say
never
also
thought about them in relation to HABs, as far as removal of those. So that's why my question.
Honestly, Senator, it's sewage and stormwater runoff. I think by the time we get to bivalves and their role, it's, as far as we know today, with today's science, it's the smaller, the lesser role. If we could address the sewage and the runoff and the fertilizer, I think we'll make some real meaningful progress for the public and our environment.
Thank you. Thank you to the panel. And Chairman, we actually just passed in Suffolk County a Clean Water Infrastructure Act that's going to be able to fund those sewage issues that we have. And it's something that I think anyone in the region, like the Sound, everyone who has something to do with the Sound should consider having a consistent funding stream that they can find a smart way to raise revenue locally.
Yes.
It certainly makes sense for us.
And I just want to say that's in our testimony also. It took us 10 years to get an eighth of a penny on the ballot so the public could vote. So we want and we hope that municipalities that need this now can just take the blueprint of what was established and do it much quicker and much more efficiently. And you're right, because the secret here is money. We know how to treat our sewage, but we have to pay for it. That's exactly right.
All right, with that, I want to say thank you to this panel and to all of the panels. This has been an incredibly insightful conversation. We thank everyone. I want to thank Senator Palumbo, Senator Steck, Senator May for co-chairing this hearing today. And we want to thank all of the folks who helped put this together, all of our staff, central media behind the glass. We want to thank everybody. And with that, we look forward to continuing these conversations both offline, in legislative session, in budgetary session. But this was really a great conversation starter. So thank you all very much, and this concludes our hearing for today.